This story begins with the protagonist thinking he has been kidnapped while he was sleeping. His world is completely dark, but when he finally frees himself, he realizes he is inside a forest. He widens his eyes, seeing carnivorous plants and giant insects. Suddenly, he sees a reflection in the water, and the creature is so strange that he thinks it's a fantasy. The guy has simply turned into a dragon egg. The voice in his head explains that he is rank F, but before explaining the rest, the egg starts screaming, thinking this is some kind of prank. While conversing with the voice of God, a monster suddenly appeared, attempting to devour him. Irushia, still in his egg with legs stage and utterly defenseless, could only flee from the creature. Reaching the edge of a cliff, he found himself cornered, with no escape from the monster. However, Irushia conceived of the only viable option in that dire situation, to plunge off the cliff, dragging the monster with him, even if it meant becoming a scrambled egg. Fortunately, the dragon egg proved resilient, allowing him to defeat the monster. With this victory, he achieved the necessary level to evolve into the next species. Irushia was no longer a mere dragon egg, but had transformed into a baby dragon. After such an adrenaline rush, he sought water and a moment to rest. Yet, to his dismay, a group of monsters arrived, seeking revenge for their fallen comrade. But now, Irushia was a baby dragon, capable of breathing fire. With a single attack, he effortlessly defeated all the monsters. Wandering through the forest, he began to feel a sense of madness, seeing only monsters. He started hearing various voices, wondering if they were humans conversing. Approaching closer, he discovered a group of humans. Quite pleased, Irushia went to speak with them, but he forgot he was a dragon. Consequently, he was unexpectedly attacked by a human. Unbeknownst to him, humans hunted dragons for food, and he was about to become a meal. Unexpectedly, a woman stepped forward, preventing him from becoming food. She assured him everything was fine, and the other humans left. As a healer, she began to tend to his wounds. Comforting him, she said he only needed a little rest to recover. A loud noise, similar to a dragon's roar, echoed through the forest. She headed towards the roar to see if her friends needed help. As he hadn't fully recovered, he couldn't move to assist her. Even without full recovery, he pushed himself, not wanting to lose the only person who had defended him. Arriving at the scene, he was confronted by a stone dragon, realizing it was stronger than he had imagined. The voice of God began to desperately warn him to flee. However, he saw that Miria, the girl who saved him, was about to become the dragon's meal. Completely ignoring the voice of God, Irushia charged forward, punching the dragon in the face. Since this caused no damage, he had to resort to another plan: distraction. Irushia ran as fast as possible, leaving the dragon disoriented. He delivered another punch, this time with the intention of confusing it. This bought him time to escape with Miria. After walking for hours, carrying Miria on his back, he finally collapsed from exhaustion. While trying to catch his breath, a group of humans appeared and found him beside her. But, being a dragon, they regarded him as a monster. With no alternative, he was forced to flee as quickly as he could, leaving Miria behind, as there was nothing more he could do for her at that moment. Exhausted and wounded, Irushia fell asleep in the middle of the forest, overcome by fatigue. The next day, Miria awoke startled and screaming inside her village. She asked her sister if she had been rescued by her in the forest. Her sister was confused, thinking Miria had returned to the village alone. Miria replied that it was impossible, as she was completely incapacitated to return by herself. She pondered if it was the dragon that had saved her. Meanwhile, in the forest, Irushia defeated several giant worms. He reached the maximum level of a baby dragon and evolved into the dreaded Calamity Baby Dragon. This new form he achieved was extremely powerful, which greatly pleased Irushia. But while analyzing his new stats, a spider web struck him, trapping him and rendering him immobile. A giant spider walked towards him. Irushia used his dragon's breath to escape. However, the spider's stats were much higher, and the attack didn't even harm it. And so, he had to run again. Irushia couldn't bear having to flee from monsters anymore. Incredibly, fate once again placed a ravine in his path. But this time he was more prepared and managed to jump to the other side. The spiders created a web bridge and crossed after him. Irushia planned that he needed to find a monster to level up a bit before facing the spiders. And there was his salvation, a gigantic worm wandering ahead of him. Irushia immediately charged, attacking with everything he had. After defeating it, he gained 8 levels, and finally became more evenly matched with the spiders, able to confront them. The spiders tried to catch him off guard, but he was alert and leaped at the right moment. He attacked their weak point directly. Irushia eliminated all the spiders and acquired new abilities. He also gained 14 levels, becoming much more confident for future battles. Still on the same day, he entered the cave to set up a base. As he walked, black slime fell into his eye and began to burn. This slime belonged to slimes living inside the cave. As an excellent runner, he quickly fled from there. He couldn't understand what that black slime was that burned his face. Now he decided to be more careful to avoid more surprise attacks like before. Wandering through the forest, he saw some vases and a petrified bear and wondered what they were doing there. As he approached, he discovered the hard way that those vases were disguised turtles, and that the bear wasn't a stone either. Even though it was 3 against 1, the monsters were no stronger than him. He went for the turtles first, as they were the weakest. He landed a direct punch on the shell of one of them and delivered a powerful kick to the other, eliminating both quickly and efficiently. With only the petrified bear left, he believed it would be easy to defeat it. However, the bear possessed a hidden power that devoured everything in front of it. When he started to be pulled by the force of that mouth on the bear's belly, he had to jump to avoid becoming food. Then, he delivered a brutal attack that shattered the bear into several pieces. After hours of walking, he found a cute black lizard. What seemed harmless ended up biting his paw. Even with the appearance of a young animal, it was surprisingly strong. Frightened, the creature ran away from Erusia. He went after it, planning his counterattack. He used the same ability he always used against monsters. However, it still had a hidden trick. The bite the lizard gave earlier had injected a toxin. The lizard took the opportunity to try and escape him. Meanwhile, he was losing health due to the toxin. The direction the lizard was running led to an enormous cliff, and Erusia knew he wouldn't be able to cross it. Even weak, he jumped to save the little one, as it was just a baby. After using all his energy, he didn't even have the strength to move his own arm, but this time, the lizard was no longer fleeing, which left Erusia completely puzzled. Without him expecting it, the lizard lay down beside him, and they rested together. The dragon notices this and has a notable expression of someone who doesn't understand anything at all. We see our protagonist's beloved cave. The place now has a statue of that strange being at the entrance. On the other side of the entrance, there's also a small dragon sculpture. The dragon has finally managed to do what he wanted. The complete renovation of the cave with all kinds of things is officially finished. Ceramic statues remain at the narrow entrance, preventing monsters from entering. The interior is somewhat illuminated and the ground is packed to the top to dry when it rains. He knows that now everyone is wondering how he managed all this. All of this is thanks to the bear, which makes it possible to create magical objects with its clay. The dragon shaped the clay with fire and water and managed to make things with difficulty. No one can say that our dear dragon is not civilized anymore. Then the little caterpillar appears in the background, trying to charm him. This little creature ended up following him to the cave and seems to want to live there too. The lizard gave him the antidote while he was knocked out and has taken a liking to him. She probably sees him as her savior because of the rescue from the abyss. Yesterday's enemies are today's friends, and the protagonist doesn't think the little animal will try to hurt him again. But he gets tired of the licking and pushes the princess lizard away. He is somewhat worried and wonders if she won't end up finishing him off in his sleep. Now that he has finished the renovation, he can go back to looking for food to eat. He wanted to make preserved meat, but the Shuju monkeys steal it every time. Draco says he will give those miserable monkeys a beating next time, and he decides he will stop hiding because he wants to level up. The protagonist has spent too much time decorating the house that he even forgot about time and his priorities. We then see the mountains surrounding the forest. A group of wild beasts runs by very quickly in the area. It's a pack of ugly wolves that looks like they came from an old cartoon. However, things are going to get bad for him because the big dragon has placed himself in their path. And the lizard accompanies him as the protagonist's loyal companion now. She uses the famous clay weapon skill on the wolves. The pack gets quite confused, and now I see that these ugly ones have only one eye. The wolves are hit by the pebbles and flee immediately. Draco takes advantage of the fleeing little wolves and appears right in front of them to take them down. He jumps on one of them and punches that horrible eye. The poor thing gets buried in the ground, and the little caterpillar approaches. Experience rains down for our dynamic duo. They both strike cool poses, and the protagonist says it was a lot of fun to fight side by side. He realizes that experience is distributed according to each one's participation in the fight. So he praises the lizard again, saying she is very smart. The princess lizard helped in the fight exactly in the way he needed the most. He realizes that the new companion will really be a great help in hunting and in general. Afterward, they return to the cave to eat and rest. The princess plays with some leaves, and Draco just watches. Soon, they cook the evening meal and eat a lot. They go to sleep, and the protagonist has to adjust himself properly because the lizard is very close. The next day, they go hunting for some wolves again, and in this fun, the protagonist even gains resistance to paralysis. But the little dragon is happy as can be with the black lizard after all. He feels that he has gotten used to having his companion always by his side. The cave was all tidied up for visitors, but an unexpected guest ended up staying there, and that is no bother to him at all. The protagonist begins to reflect that this life isn't as bad as it seemed it would be. The day passes and they return to their daily exploration. Princess Lizard gives a few taps on the dragon, wanting to indicate something. She climbs down from his back and points in a direction in the forest. Drogo notices that she is very happy and asks if she found something tasty to eat. They observe what the lizard is showing and she is quite pleased with what she sees. However, the dragon does not like what he sees at all and he even feels nauseous. What he sees is a soul mushroom that came straight from the 9th floor of hell. This beauty reeks of rot and is absurdly poisonous. Our protagonist nearly dies from the stench, and the little lizard loves it because she adores poison. The little princess doesn't shy away from anything and quickly goes to take a bite of the rotten thing. But the protagonist uses a baby breath and ruins the fun for the little lizard. The big mushroom is set on fire and returns to the hell from which it should never have emerged. The dragon apologizes, but he knows that the lizard would have infested the house with the smell. The problem would be more about the horrible smell than the poison, and the protagonist promises to bring her other poisons. However, the lizard notices something and doesn't even care anymore that she lost the mushroom. Draco says that the plants he finds will be his apology. The lizard continues to look back at the dragon with a shocked expression. He also decides to turn around and see what is causing his friend's shock. At that moment, he sees what it is and has a fit. We only see the destructive claws of some certainly bizarre creature. We discover that what scared the princess was this two-headed Chinese lion. Our duo watches the reaction live, not knowing what they will plan next. It's the first time the protagonist sees a two-headed monster. He knew that this creature would be trouble the moment he locked eyes on it. He wouldn't have fled if he were alone. Then the little monster approaches slowly and frighteningly. Its stats are truly impressive, with high attack and HP. But our protagonist isn't too far behind either. He can also play around with this creature's regular abilities. The princess continues to have her strong point exclusively in agility. However, the protagonist realizes that fleeing won't be the best option after all. The good side is that the lion can be hit by the lizard since it has no resistance to poison. So this time, the protagonist will have to be the bait. He charges at the big lion and leaves the rest to the black lizard princess. He uses Dragon Punch, and the opponent dodges even before the protagonist invokes the attack. The dragon is impressed with the enemy's level of evasion, but he needs to keep making sure the creature keeps its eyes on him. Soon he does what a dragon does best and breathes fire in the lion's face. However, the lion retaliates and unleashes an even more powerful blast of fire. The protagonist loses the strength contest and is sent flying. His back catches more fire than a barbecue. He needs to roll in the grass and dirt to literally put out all that fire. He takes considerable damage and understands that the fire breath wins against baby breath. Then, the creature lets out a hellish growl and creates a black field around itself. The dragon feels his body grow heavier and his mind more confused. It's the damn gravitational power that makes no sense for a creature like this to use. Our protagonist recognizes that the creature has created a very strong gravity field. This power is much more powerful than he imagined, and he doesn't even know how to get out of this. However, in that last moment, he sees the black lizard pass over them. Now, the little lizard can move freely and poison the creature by biting it. The lion, not being foolish, notices the trick and glances at the lizard. The princess is even quicker and sees that their plan has gone down the drain, so she decides to use the clay gun ability to try to compensate. Our protagonist is impressed that the lion even predicted the lizard's attack. The lion uses beast tackle and slams into the poor princess with all its might. The little lizard girl is hit and crashes to the ground. The princess has an expression as if she has been knocked out, and the dragon panics, shouting the name of the black lizard. He rushes forward and carefully holds his friend. A two-headed strike was enough to take half of the lizard's hit points. The only way for them to win now is to catch it with the venomous fang when it slows down. One of the problems is that the two heads act in balance in attack and defense. However, it seems that the protagonist has found a solution by observing the enemy's abilities. The difficulty is also that the lizard has very low HP. The princess says something to the protagonist in the lizard language, and he looks at her. Dragonoid interprets this as a "I'll leave the rest to you" from the lizard. Then they see that they have no choice but to kick the butt of the Chinese lion. Soon the creature returns to the fight and charges towards him. The protagonist tries to understand which head performs which type of action in combat. It seems that the left one casts spells while the right one is focused on tracking movements. So now the head on the right is keeping an eye on our protagonist. China approaches before the dragon completes his reasoning and bites him. Courageously, the protagonist defends the lion's bite with his own arm. He feels that his arm is going to be torn off and needs to hold on a little longer. Princess Lizard jumps, and the second head of the Chinese lion turns directly towards her. The protagonist knows that the second head will cast the spell according to the pattern. But of course, he won't let that happen and strikes the mouth of the head. Then, the princess takes advantage of the opening and bites the lion, completely poisoning it. China screams in pain and is now in a major poisoning condition. Dragon laughs excitedly because they have finally defeated the lion. Now, it's just a matter of fleeing and waiting for the poison to take effect in true chicken runner style. He has no resistance to poison, so it won't take long. But the unexpected happens, and the head bites the other one off as if it were nothing. The poor head rolls away. Dragon and Princess Lizard are shocked by such violence. This lion is simply insane. The thought of getting rid of the poison so quickly was very clever. He knows he could never do that even if he were a two-headed dragon. But the protagonist also knows that the situation is practically irreversible for the creature. Then he looks at the monster's skill status and is a bit surprised. Our dragon is impressed because the lion is already preparing for a counterattack. The damned severed head uses the skill to pursue the lizard even in that state. The lizard notices the immortal head and is shocked. It turns into Mini Sonic and flees immediately. Both run through the forest in a high-speed chase. Dragonite doesn't understand how the hell this ridiculous ability works, even with the head like that. Then he comes face to face with what remains of the Chinese lion, which glares at him with anger. The protagonist gets irritated and thinks he doesn't have time for this guy anymore. He soon yells at the creature to get out of his way. We look at a part of the forest that is a bit more civilized, even with a wooden fence. We return to our dear Milia, and she walks through the forest exploring, but a man appears and calls out to her, trying to identify her. It's Gregory, who asks if Miria had gone to the forest alone. She makes up an excuse and says she was just gathering some herbs for Marielle. Then she says she has more things to do and leaves without saying anything else. Gregory tries to stop her and only receives a little wave from Miria. Later, the farmer goes to report the girl to her master. Marielle gets furious, saying she hadn't given her any tasks. On the contrary, she warned Miria to stay as far away from the forest as possible. The elf sighs and puts her hand to her head in indignation. Gregory comments that she probably feels responsible for what happened to the others. However, Gregory says he is there to tell about a possible monster resembling Dawes that is roaming the area. Things are getting so strange that even a dragon flew over the village. And there's also the adventurer who visited the village and calls himself a hero. This guy seemed quite suspicious with parts of the stone dragon and also resembled Dawes. Muriel wonders if all of this is connected and has a bad feeling about it. The elf thinks about sending someone to investigate, but fears that something bad might happen. Gregory then suggests hiring adventurers from outside the village to help. Muriel thinks he might be right, and the guild's adventurers seem to have a sense of justice. She says she will do just that and send a letter to the Adventurers Guild. Our dear village chief hopes that the village can breathe easier from now on, now that I understand that the woods surrounding the forest are meant to separate the area from the village. But we return to the fight in the middle of the brush. The ghost head has not succumbed to the poison and continues the pursuit. Big Head is zigzagging behind the poor lizard. Princess is getting tired of all this running around, and the protagonist continues to face the lion, which now only has one head. The creature is in extremely heavy bleeding condition. However, it is full of tricks up its sleeve, and the protagonist knows it is just buying time. Dragon remembers something and becomes alert. He defends against the bite again and knows he could easily dodge everything and wait for the creature to bleed out. He knows he can't do much against the monster theoretically, but he is 100% nervous this time and continues fighting until the end. He grabs its neck and says he can't let this idiot breathe the same air as Miria and the lizard. Just fleeing and doing nothing has not been an option for a long time. Then he throws the lion into the air with strength greater than Hulk's. He lunges into the air at an extremely high speed. He grabs the lion once again in free fall and delivers a nutcracker move with the enemy itself, causing super critical damage. He doesn't know how that worked and hopes the other head has been knocked out as well. But he has no idea where it and the princess lizard might be. The protagonist finds traces of injuries along the road. Dragon really hopes this trail belongs to the head and not the black lizard. Our protagonist prays to God that this trail does not belong to the lizard. Princess Lizard was the first friend he made during this dragon journey. He doesn't even want to turn human anymore. He just wants his companion to be okay. At that moment, the protagonist hears the status that someone's rolling has leveled up. The dragon begins to search the forest to see if he can find the black lizard. Dragon is startled by the second head of the dragon and sees that it has indeed lost. Soon he starts calling out to the black lizard, asking if it is still alive. Then he hears the noise his friend makes. Princess Lizard emerges from a bush all bruised. They both notice each other and look at one another. They continue to stare at each other for a while. Dragon tries to hold back tears and escape from the invisible ninjas that are chopping onions. And the princess jumps joyfully to greet her friend while he expresses his gratitude. The protagonist notices that she still has 18 hit points and is quite tough. She starts licking him as usual, and he is very grateful that she is alive. After everything calms down, he places some leaves on her. These plants help slightly in HP recovery. At that moment, the notification of their experience gain appears. Our protagonist is surprised that it is only now that the lion has truly died. Draco levels up, and in 3 more levels, he will be able to evolve again. Finally, he gains the ability to turn human and says they should return to the cave. However, he stops for a second, as if processing information. He still doesn't understand anything that happened, and in the end, he asks what that was. Only now does he process that he gained the ability he so desired. Then we move to another part of the forest and hear some noises. It seems someone is having an intense fight against a giant spider. The fight is so chaotic that things are flying everywhere in the forest. Soon, we see that the victory ended up belonging to the swordswoman. She comments that the spider appeared out of nowhere and almost caught her by surprise. Then another person desperately screams for the swordswoman, Malusha. It is another girl who ended up trapped in the spider's web. Malusha teases her about the pose she got stuck in, and Yuno gets nervous because she acted as bait. The swordswoman frees Yuno and thanks her for helping as a decoy in the fight. Yuno thinks they are working too hard and could have called others for help. Malusha agrees that Yuno is right because the monsters are getting stronger and stronger. She says that the strongest and most dominant monster in the forest region is the stone dragon. But Malusha says they don't necessarily need to fight because they just need to find someone. The swordswoman also aims to be the first to explore the unknown lands of the region. Yuno says that the mission itself is already somewhat scary because it requires them to look for someone who is supposedly dead. The mission is more to ease the minds of the villagers from the rumors they have been hearing. Soon they find the protagonist's hideout. Malusha asks what this place is. She also wonders if what is at the entrance of the cave are statues. The first one resembles a dancing figure, and the other one wonders if it would be a dragon. Malusha believes that their structure must be very old because it is full of magic and durable. The swordswoman imagines that the place is a temple and asks Yuno if she knows the Litval tribe. Yuno thinks it is a cannibal tribe, but Malusha says that those live up north. Or Malusha thinks it might be a construction from an ancient people and wishes to enter. They enter the cave to learn more about it, and they end up being quite shocked by what they see. They discover the entire underground paradise created by our dear protagonist. They observe the paintings molded on the wall. They notice the straw beds that the protagonist made as well. They even notice the jars of spices and food as well. Yuno says that the place clearly seems to be inhabited. Malusha takes a look inside the jars and realizes there is paperies inside. All the jars are filled to the brim with paperies. Yuno is impressed because papyrus is considered red gold. Malusha thinks that this place is a hideout for stolen goods, but she doesn't remember any robbery or merchants in the area. Yuno wants to take a little bit of paperies, and Malusha quickly shouts to stop her. The swordswoman thinks it's better for them to flee because the owner of the hideout might arrive. She says they can come back later and bring other members to explore together. Malusha stops and Yuno ends up bumping her head against her back. Yuno asks what happened, and the knight tells her to be quiet. The adventurers says she heard strange noises from outside. Then a creature emerges from the darkness and enters the cave. This bizarre thing is a muscular fish, or something similar. Both are in shock, wanting to know what the hell this monstrosity is. The creature has a very threatening appearance that scares everyone. Malusha is terrified because she has never seen a creature like this. Yuno trembles, saying that the creature seems too much of a monster and is blocking the exit. It raises its arm, and the two see no other option but fight. Melucia shouts for Yuno to prepare an attack. She jumps and is about to deliver a hammer blow to the aberration. The knight begins to concentrate all her power. The female chaplain continues advancing to strike the creature. Yuno creates an impact and sends the fish flying away. The monster is somewhat shocked by the power of the dynamic duo. Then, Melucia raises her sword and prepares for the ultimate magic. She sends several light projectiles to the creature's face. The reptilian man receives the ability full force in the face and is sent flying into the infinite. Now they can flee since the creature has been defeated. They run out still afraid that the mysterious monster might try something else. Yuno begins to imagine that the bandits who lived there were devoured by the monster. Melucia says they will come back more prepared and with more people for round 2. Now let's go back a bit in time. Our protagonist and his lizard companion see something near the cave. There are indeed some nosy people snooping around others' homes. It's our dear Yuno and Melucia, now seen through the dragon's eyes. The protagonist says they cannot enter there while he is not around, but he cannot simply enter because they will confuse him with a monster. He soon thinks he can act like a friendly monster. He pauses and reflects on his own decision. He questions whether he should attempt the transformation into a human. He has no idea how it will turn out, but he will try anyway. The problem is that this ability takes away half of his stats and also consumes MP. The dragon will have a maximum of 2 minutes to see what will come of this ability. Princess Lizard just observes while he makes a decision. Our protagonist speaks to the lizard princess as if he were betraying her by turning human. Then, when he questions himself why he is making these excuses. So he decides that he will indeed transform into a human, even without much certainty. He strikes a dramatic pose and uses the ability. As soon, the creature becomes thinner than a toothpick. He lets out a scream of agony as he seems to disintegrate. He continues screaming and making popping noises until we can only see the muscular arm of the monster. The protagonist feels like he has been buried in dust and remade in human form. The dragon is so ugly that even the lizard princess is suspicious. He feels that he has become a very muscular human, and that is better than a calamity dragon. He continues on his way and asks the lizard to wait a little right there. The princess sees her friend entering. She hears a scream coming from the cave. She is somewhat startled and only watches her companion being kicked out. Our burly fishman crashes down right next to her. He splots on the ground like a clumsy character from an old cartoon. The protagonist feels that this was pointless and wonders why they were so cruel. The next day, he looks at himself in the mirror and sees the devilry he has become. Now, he understands why the two ran away when they saw him. Let's spend another day in our beloved forest. Someone mentions that the black dragon and his companion have made a home in his domain. He continues saying that neither the dragons nor those wolves should be there. This creature thought they would leave soon, but now he can no longer ignore it. All who dare to invade his territory will not be treated with any mercy. Then we move to another part of the forest, and we see the protagonist and the princess running from something. It's those foolish monkeys that keep stealing the guy's food. Soon we see the faces and skills of these rascals. They move extremely quickly from side to side. The creatures move in 3 dimensions, which is why they almost always escape. One is seen with a sly look and the protagonist says, "But." The monkey is hit squarely by, I don't even know what, and the other is left in shock. The dragon mocks, saying he got him. The beast keeps spinning, and the protagonist just laughs at him. In fact, the meat had been poisoned by the dragon and the lizard. Then, the monkeys try to sneak up on the protagonist from behind, but he dodges and the other 2 crash to the ground with a thud. The princess appears and quickly poisons one. Then the dragon just punches the other in the face and sends him to his doom. The creature is disoriented and loses a lot of hit points. Dragonite takes a few steps back and sees the monkey fall to its knees. Now, they are nothing since their teamwork has come to an end. Our protagonist plays the villain and decides how he will punish the monkeys. One of them is in shock and very scared. The dragon decides it's time to give them a beating. Then the desperate monkey starts to take in some air. The creature uses the famous monkey whistle ability. The technique is so fierce that it seems the guy has entered a transcendental dimension. This whistle is quite loud and the protagonist wants to know what he's trying to do. Soon, everyone is waiting to see what will happen. Draco checks if this is affecting his status, and it isn't, until we only see the muscular arm of the primate. The protagonist realizes the creature is full of trembolone and is in shock. He looks at the black lizard and tells him to flee from there. But Chris Bumstead in monkey form was already there by his side. It's too late, and the dear princess lizard is captured. This is a mix of Bigfoot with a monkey and a kuma. The monkey is quite resilient and has a range of abilities. The protagonist sees that things have gotten serious now. Worse still, the black lizard has already been captured. The poor princess is being cruelly crushed by the monkey. The dragon is filled with a mix of anger and despair. Then the monkey furrows his brows and screams demonically for the protagonist not to move. Our dragon thinks about taking a monkey hostage. Fortunately, he still calls for his henchmen. The strategy works, and the monkey leader is clearly hesitant. However, the protagonist needs to gather more information about the opponent. He analyzes the status and sees that this is an alpha monkey that defeated the previous alpha monkey. This creature is of the support type, surprisingly enough. The bastard is so overpowered that he even has an area healing spell. A voice in the protagonist's head comments that he acted too quickly to take a hostage. Drogo realizes that this is a monkey ability quite similar to telepathy. Akuma strikes a villain pose and says he is a disgrace to humanity. Our protagonist only feels his morale sinking due to the monkey's aura. Now, the creature sets aside its hesitation and becomes irritated, forgets the hostage and decides to kill the protagonist here and now. Then, the dragon threatens, saying he will suffer more losses than that one hostage. The monkey trembles again. The other two monkeys are poisoned, and only the lizard can provide an antidote. Again, the monkey hesitates upon hearing this. Our protagonist tells the monkeys to leave them alone, and then they will give him the antidote. Akuma says that his proposal is a joke. The monkey says that this negotiation offers him no guarantees. Now, the dragon no longer knows how to react and is going all in. The monster continues crushing the princess, taking more and more of her hit points. Soon, the dragon makes the final proposal, challenging the primate Akuma to a duel. The furry one stops and thinks for a moment after hearing such audacity. Everyone falls silent, wait to see who will make the next move. Dragonite bets that if he wins, he will take over the boss's territory. Akuma states that the duel is something sacred for the Shujus and questions whether the dragon knows this. The protagonist replies that yes and says that if he accepts, he will give them the antidote to the poison. It seems that the big monster is falling for the protagonist's charm. Then the dragon mocks him, saying that he can't handle a one-on-one and doesn't need to accept. The monkey becomes increasingly irritated until he finally gives in and accepts the challenge. He says that it was never his intention to back down from the challenge because he is a tribe chief. Then he places one hand on the ground, and it seems he starts to summon something. What he does is use the clay wall ability to create a duel arena. The dragon sees the walls rising and gets a bit scared. The monkeys are extremely excited that a duel is about to happen. They bang on everything and make a racket like a football fan group. Our protagonist finds himself surrounded by a natural coliseum. Furry Akuma used a good portion of his MP to create that structure. The monkey demands the antidote, and now the game has turned in favor of the dragon. He positions himself, showing all the strength and aura of a primate master. Draco already thinks they can escape when they free the black lizard, so he asks the monkey if he isn't going to release the lizard princess. The furry one says he will keep the hostage so that he doesn't interfere in the battle. Then he uses restoration so that both have a fair duel with full health points. The great battle of the Clamby dragon against the powerful Shuju is about to begin. Master Shuju uses the spell to become stronger and faster. He runs to attack the protagonist, who is impressed. He approaches extremely quickly and lands a punch on the dragon's face. Minus 25 HP for our protagonist. He sees the fist coming again and takes another hit to the face. Drogo starts getting beaten up like a ragdoll, and his HP keeps dropping. Great Shuju steps forward, charging up power. He then throws a hook at the opponent, who can't dodge it at all. The protagonist flies several meters forward after the blow. Our guy crashes into the wall, and more than half of his life is gone. Both primates celebrate the beautiful hit that the primate landed on Drago. Dragonite is impressed, but he couldn't lay a finger on Akuma. He won't be able to do anything while the Shuju is buffed. The monster charges for another attack, and the dragon thinks about how to react. Great Shuju is furious and confused for not hitting the enemy this time. Our protagonist uses the skill he knows best. He dashes to the left with Sonic's ball. Then he dodges to the right. He goes straight ahead in the style of Messi, and then backtracks, pulling a trick. The protagonist realizes he can be faster than the primate using the roll. Now, he just intends to keep his distance until the monkey's buff wears off. However, the great Shuju finds the dragon's tactic very dishonorable. The dragon doesn't care and thinks that a battle of endurance is still a duel. But then something comes to his mind and he looks up. He sees his companion in the monkey's hands. He thinks about trying not to provoke him, but knows that if he doesn't win, they will kill the lizard anyway. He feels ashamed seeing his friend's expression. However, he has no choice but to do everything to win. The monkey gets even more irritated because the protagonist won't stop running. The monster says he has done something unforgivable and is insulting the sacred duel. Soon Akuma thinks he has cornered the dragon, but the protagonist sees that the chance has come because the guy is very hot-headed. The dragon becomes the master of the dribble and makes the monkey look foolish. Furry looks back, perplexed by what just happened. At that moment, he takes a hit to the face. It's the tail of our dragon, which deals more damage than a club, and there's still room for one more hit. Great Shuju takes another hit and loses 62 life points. The monkey henchmen don't know where to hide in fear. Our dragon lands, farming aura, and the monkey is left kneeling. The blow to the head was so strong that it even left him with a confusion status. The dragon realizes that the enemy hasn't raised his defenses and just needs to land one more hit to finish it. He will use this chance because the enemy's strengthening effect has worn off. But the tribe leader places his hands on the ground and invokes his magic to create a ramp that makes the dragon's rolling useless. The protagonist already imagined that the monkey could act this way. However, the boss spent all the MP he had to use this ability, so now it's just about forcing a victory with this status difference between the two. However, the big Shuju disappeared from there in less than a second. Akuma appears right behind the protagonist at lightning speed. Drago doesn't even see where the hit came from. He's extremely confused by the gorilla's reaction. It seems that the monkey is now spinning like a Beyblade towards him. The monkey is so fast, but he might even create a tornado. And the organized monkey fans go wild. Furry apologizes to the dragon because he underestimated him. Now he says he will face the opponent with all his strength and starts jumping like a circus performer. But at that moment, he gets slapped by our dragon buddy. The monster used all his MP just to improve his agility. Soon the dragon gets hit in the face as well. However, the protagonist doesn't know how the hell the monkey got so fast and doesn't know what to do. So he decides to lean against the wall to see the direct attack coming. Our protagonist has higher stats and just needs a gap to attack. He will have to do the good old Turner attack that he knows how to do best. He is indignant because in every fight he has to push himself to the limit. He takes a direct hit to the monkey's face that even breaks his teeth. But he lands another uppercut on the monkey's chin in the counterattack. Just from that hit, the monkey's HP went to 0. The monkey henchmen are shot by what happened. Dragon Punch evolves to level 3 and he poses as the winner. He looks at the monkeys to make sure they keep their promise. Something happens and the lizard princess starts to scream. Our protagonist gets worried and takes a quick look. Then he gets a punch in the face from the falling monkey. The protagonist is in shock because he got hit while his guard was down. Then, one falls on top of the other, resulting in a double knockout. The monkey troop watches the whole spectacle in confusion. They look at each other wanting to know who won. They then approach to check the result of this madness up close. The dragon wakes up from his knockouting shock, letting out a scream. He wants to know about the duel and asks if he won. The answer comes immediately when he receives the title of pack leader. Our buddy fell asleep and woke up being the boss of all the monkeys. The protagonist buries the big Shuju because he was the first one he could talk to. This battle was very useful because it leveled him up to 39. And now, all the monkeys recognize him as the leader of the pack. However, the problem is that his house has become very crowded because of this. He even exclaims in anger, asking if the monkeys are going to keep bothering him. The echo is so loud that it even comes out of the cave. Dragon then kicks the butts of all the monkeys out of there. It seems that the monkeys have eaten all the guy's food. Suddenly, the protagonist finds himself with a bunch of fruit or whatever that is. Dragon was complaining, and now the monkeys brought everything for him. He is impressed with the monkeys' labor. Now the monkeys have shown what they came for. The lizard princess looks on with an utterly priceless expression of shock. The gang of Nestriants indulges in eating meat. The protagonist realizes that the Shujus have hands very similar to humans, so he already thinks of a way to put the guys to work. He soon tells everyone to come closer. The princess approaches and the protagonist says it's just the Shujus. She then makes that same face as before. Dragonite teaches the monkeys how to make jerky. The little princess tries everything to get the dragon's attention. Later, the dragon says he needs to increase the stock and calls a monkey to help him. The protagonist notices the black lizard but says he is too busy for him. The lizard makes the same expression as before. Then we see someone observing something. This snoop is spying on the dragon and the lizard. He turns to another person and says they are like them. The other one with him is this bug Dawes. The Cyclops guy says he didn't expect the dragon to defeat the monkey, but he doesn't believe that this dragon will cause him any problems. He will need to distract this dragon a little for the operation to destroy the village to work. We return to the village and see Marielle saying she hasn't seen Miria today. Then the elf asks Gregory if something happened. He said there are people saying they saw the twins who were previously missing near the forest. Gregory doesn't believe it, but he's afraid that Miria has gone to investigate. Marielle is also worried about the various rumors that are surfacing in the village. It is also said that the adventurers that she hired went to seek more help. A loud crash is heard coming from the forest. Gregory and she notice and become confused. Then Marielle decides to look for Miria in the forest. Soon Gregory insists and tells her to leave this mission to him. Gregory says he knows his limits and won't venture too deeply. He tells Marielle to focus on looking for Miria in the village. The elf tells Gregory to grab weapons and herbs from the stock and not to go past the sentinel stone. Marielle stares at the forest before leaving, and she doesn't have good feelings about all of this. We then discover that the village is surrounded by the forest. We return to our protagonist and he has finished making new jars. He and the monkey proudly observe their creation. The dragon's new partners are evolving every day. But something ends up leaving the dragon perplexed. Our protagonist can't find the black lizard anywhere. Draco starts calling for his friend and searches the entire forest, here and there and everywhere. He wonders if his friend is upset because he spent the whole day with the monkeys. The princess has never liked the monkeys since they first met. Drogo thinks that the plan to go to the human village has gone down the drain because of the monsters he acquired. What he wants most now is a telepathy power like that of the old monkey master. He wonders if his next evolution will have that ability. Finally, he finds his lizard friend. She has a fat look and expression. Then the protagonist approaches and speaks to her. He tells her never to disappear like that again. He soon apologizes for not paying attention to her. He says he has already taught the basics to the monkeys and will no longer neglect her. He invites her to gather some poisonous mushrooms and then leave. She jumps in his face and makes up with him instantly. However, something catches her attention. A bunch of eyes appear in the darkness watching them. They are those horrible three-eyed wolves. The creatures try to bite our protagonists and they dodge. The wolf steps back and lurks at the two. Then, an entire pack of wolves emerges from the bushes. The dragon feels like he has been seeing these wolves a lot lately. At least, now the protagonist knows what he will have for dinner. He sends a baby breath towards the clumsy beasts. Princess quickly launches her clay gun. All the creatures are hit and take significant damage, but one crazy wolf keeps advancing even while burned. If it won't die from the fire, then it takes this punch head on. The black lizard bites the enemy, dealing damage and poisoning it. The duo sends two to their deaths and waits for the next wave. The dragon discovers that he has found a perfect XP farm. The protagonist thinks for a moment and levels up to the maximum and can no longer gain XP. They are also impressed because the wolves keep appearing. He wonders if by any chance these guys have the ability to call for help. The hairy ones start to appear one by one from the bushes. Our dragon tries to inspect, but can't. The only thing he notices is an abnormal condition. We discover that these wolves share the same vision through the third eye. It seems that this time the creatures are moving in a very mechanical way. The protagonist speculates that the animals are being manipulated by someone or something. He continues to not understand the reason for this crowd of wolves. Another strange thing seems to emerge from the darkness. Our protagonist notices and becomes a bit irritated. He doesn't understand what the hell just happened. Even the black lizard is confused. The dragon stops and looks deeply at the horizon of the forest. Let's go to the other side of the forest. It's Miria running away from something. She's also fleeing from those hairy wolves. Even she doesn't know how there are so many wolves in this place. The worst part is that they are all advancing toward the village. Then, a mysterious being approaches the sentinel stone. It seems that the monsters are avoiding this stone, but now this stone means nothing to him. Then it is revealed to us that it is this creature that is controlling the wolves. One of them lunges to devour Miria without mercy. Miria is terrified but knows she can't run this time. At that exact moment, our dragon appears to save the day. The young support sees her savior and doesn't recognize him. The dragon positions himself between Miria and the danger. Thus, Miria realizes that it was a black dragon who rescued her. We go back a bit in time and see Miria hiding from the Mahar wolves. She doesn't know what to do because there are too many wolves and she won't defeat them. But the village will end up in danger if she can't react. There is no one in the village who would be able to face this horde of wolves. Then she reveals herself and shoots several fireballs at the hairy wolves. The projectiles pass through them as they glance up, somewhat scared. Soon they position themselves and fix their eyes on the young adventurer. They stand face to face, and Miria remains full of courage. She tries to act as a decoy so that the wolves follow her and not attack the village. Our protagonist can hear Miria's voice from far away. He realizes that her voice is very weak and wonders if she has been attacked. He punches another one of those strange wolves. He can roll and go see Miria or stay and help the lizard. Draco doesn't know which choice to make. He gets so flustered that his eyes turn into spirals until he sees the wolves being defeated by someone else. The creatures come crashing down, completely knocked out. They even bounce on the ground, those sons of a gun. It's the monkeys who won't miss the chance to hammer the wolves. Dragon is surprised to see that the Shujus have come to help. Then there's a whack on one of their heads, a smash on the other hairy one, and the place turns into a general melee. The monkeys finished making the instruments and are using them as weapons. Our protagonist remembers that he has a duty to fulfill and adopts an intimidating look. He turns into Sonic and apologizes because he needs to go take care of some business. The poor princess has this indignant and jealous expression. The protagonist feels sorry for the black lizard but needs to do this. Both the title of Little Hero and the Stray Path evolve. Dragon wants to resolve this matter quickly. Then we return to the present, where the dragon has just saved Miria. He looks back and sees the support still somewhat dazed. He tries to communicate by asking if she is okay. But Miria is more afraid of him than she was of the wolves. The protagonist thinks she looks like she saw the Demon King saving her. Then he realizes he is giving off the same vibe as when they met before. He decides to stay with her because it is very dangerous for her to be alone there. Our dragon keeps questioning why she is in the forest again. Miria continues looking at him with that cute face of fear and confusion. However, her eyes widen and she seems to have discovered something. She stands up and even the dragon is somewhat taken aback. The support holds the staff, and the dragon fears she might advance. But her reaction is to greet him and give a big, cheerful smile. Draco doesn't quite understand what Miria is planning. He even comically steps back, thinking she has gone crazy. Then she makes a very exaggerated gesture, imitating a dragon. Dragon remembers that she is doing exactly what he did before. Soon he approaches and makes a gesture to see if she remembers him. A light of memory fills Miria's mind. She looks at him to confirm if her suspicions are correct and jumps into a big hug with her old friend. The protagonist can't believe that Miria remembered him so quickly. Even the invisible onion-cutting ninjas appear to draw tears from Draco. With that, he realizes that it is common knowledge that monsters can change shape in this world. Miria starts gesturing happily and saying something. She chatters a lot, but it's hard to understand anything she is saying. Dragonoid even leans in to see if he can catch a word or two. He reflects a bit and thinks about what to do. The level 1 Grisha tongue skill is not having any effect. Miria keeps talking and the dragon still doesn't understand, until the Grisha tongue evolves to level 2. Now he can understand about 70% of what she says. The only problem is that Miria is a walking chatterbox. Draco tries to say that he doesn't speak her language, and Miria pays close attention to his gestures. Then she asks if he understands her words, and the protagonist replies that he does. The support is more amazed by this than she already was. However, there is still a wolf watching them from the shadows. The evil creature gets nervous because the dragon saved the human. He even admits that he is feeling irritated with life. But then something catches his attention. He sees several birds flying in one direction and hears a noise. It seems that his plan is working and someone has gone over the cliff. However, he doesn't know what to do with these two. He wonders if the plan will work with this dragon getting in the way. Then he says he is sure he can handle this annoying dragon. But now he is going to take a step back. The duo continues talking for a while longer. Our protagonist understood that Miria is in the forest to find some people. He doesn't know about the missing twins, only about Dawes who stayed under the tree. The guy lost a lot of HP, and he doesn't even know if his friend managed to survive. Only Miria decided to come check if the guy was still alive. Dragon decides that the best thing for him to do is take Miria to the village. Then he hears Miria call him Irushia and gets a bit confused. Miria says it's a name she chose for him because it's the name of her favorite flower. Irushia thinks that name is quite cute. The support asks if she can call him by that name because Irushia suits him very well. The protagonist hides his face and feels a bit embarrassed by this nickname. Soon the voice of God appears and questions if he really wants his name to be Irushia. He starts to feel a little anxious and thinks the name is a bit silly. However, he accepts it because Miria gave him that name from the heart. Now, our protagonist doesn't have to be called just Dragon anymore. Miria then starts laughing a lot at his face. She says that his behavior is very different from his appearance. The support thinks she can introduce the dragon to the other villagers. Miria says she just wants to do this as a way to thank him for the help. The protagonist makes that embarrassed expression again. He thinks about living in the village, and she says she needs to explain the situation to the people. Irishia starts planning what he will do with the lizard and the monkey when he goes to the village. Then the adventurer notices something and calls Irishia. It seems that the dragon also heard something bizarre. Soon he pulls his friend and decides to hide behind a tree to see the situation. They take cover and lie in wait to see what new problem they will have to solve. Unexpectedly, the zombie Dawes appears like a ghost riding one of those wolves. Irishia and Miria look surprised at all this madness. Behind Dawes, that hellish creature appears to help. Then our dear duo becomes very scared. If the little stone dragon in rock and smoke, these noisy monsters are definitely heading to the village. Irishia tries to recover from the shock, a bit dazed by what he saw. Miria recognizes Dawes, even more shaken than the protagonist. She doesn't understand how on earth Dawes could have appeared there, but some thought makes her realize what's going on, and she asks Irishia to stop Dawes because this story is clearly going to end badly. The protagonist says he will try to help in any way possible. He also notices that Dawes was carrying a dragonite to the village, so his plan must be to make the stone dragon go there and destroy everything. But soon the protagonist takes off running with Miria on his back. Irishia wonders how Dawes came up with this completely crazy idea. Drago thinks there's something wrong, and then Miria asks to be put down. However, Irishia decides to keep her on his back, because her being alone in that forest would be like asking for death. He zigzags like Neymar and dodges the monster, but Miria ends up taking damage from this surprise attack. The protagonist asks if she is okay, and Miria replies that she is. Again, those wolves that look more like hairy hyenas appear. Dawes was also riding one of those bastards. One of them charges, and the dragon needs to stay calm to think, because things are getting ugly. However, something ends up hitting the beast before the protagonist can. The wolf takes a hit on the cheek and gets a bit distorted. Irishia looks back to see where that blow to the wolf came from. Then the savior reveals himself to be the black lizard. They stare at each other, and the lizard notices Miria. The support also gives a glare at the princess. The princess doesn't seem to like that very much and pouts. Irishia asks if she can hold them off for a while. He apologizes again to the lizard and tells her to run when the time comes. Miria asks if the lizard was a friend, and the dragon replies that yes. Then he asks her to hold on tight and heads toward the village. The stone dragon charges furiously. This half-zombie Dawes remains a mystery, and our heroes proceed with great determination to save the village. The two advance at a high speed. We see where each of the people is at this very moment. Irishia thinks that the biggest problem is to place himself between Dawes and the stone dragon. He thinks of Miria and the possibility of receiving a long-range attack. He remembers that he is at maximum level and considers evolving to something that improves his speed. This way, he will have a better chance of defeating the little stone dragon. The first option is the Black Draconian, which is a humanoid sub-race of dragon. The second is this big dragon with several arms. The third is a choice more geared towards support. There's even a rolling dragon, but he can't choose that because Miria is on his back. Jormungand is perfect for a poison build, but it leaves the land polluted and the soil infertile. None of them seem very useful at the moment, to be honest, so the support starts to question the reason for all of this. Dawes was an important figure who dealt with monsters and was loved by children. He felt proud to protect the village, and she doesn't believe in the evil Dawes now. Irishia knows there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye. In the village, we see Gregory fully armed for combat. The man asks the children if they have seen Miria. The kids point out that she went to the forest in the morning. Greg asks where she went, and something catches one of the girls' attention. She sees Uncle Dawes coming out of the bushes on his wolf. The kids go wild, and Gregory is somewhat in shock. Some of them are surprised that he is alive and the guy just growls. Dawes looks like a ghost knight or something like that. The kids approach in a frenzy, and Greg shouts for them to stay back. They don't listen, and in their foolishness, they ask to ride the wolf. Dawes raises his weapon immediately and looks at the children with a psychopathic gaze. He makes a direct cut at the poor girl. Gregory panics and shouts Agnes's name. After that, our Gregory gets angry. He draws his spear with hatred in his eyes for the zombie Dawes. Greg tries to strike him, and the undead jumps away, escaping. The creature seems to flee, and the wolf tries to corner Greg. Gregory positions the spear, ready to bring it down on the wolf at any moment. He tells the children to move away, and he charges at the warg with his spear. The wolf also charges in a frenzy with its tongue out. We return to the duo, and Miria shows something to Irushia. She points to the path between the trees and tells them to go that way. The support says it's a shortcut to the village. Barushia realizes that Miria knows more about the forest than he does. Then she explains that there is a magical barrier around the village, but it only serves to distract the monsters that get too close. Soon they see the village in the distance among the trees. Finally, the duo manages to reach the village. Irushia feels relieved because the little stone dragon hasn't arrived yet, but he sees that the fight has already started in the village. Gregory throws a spear at the wolf mahar and sends it flying. The wolf gets even angrier and returns to take revenge. Greg firmly plants his feet on the ground and positions himself, waiting for the attack from the big-eyed creature. He tilts the spear slightly, leaving it at a perfect angle, making the wolf bite directly at its tip. His strategy works, and the wolf's head is lovingly pierced. It even splatters the death liquid on Greg's face. Irushia is impressed by Gregory's skill. Greg used the enemy's strength against itself. Miria notices something and is shocked. She sees Agnes in a very bad situation and runs to her. Gregory watches Miria running and feels happy that she is back. Then, Irushia pulls the one-eyed wolf off Greg. They stare at each other, unsure of how to react, until Gregory has the famous shocked expression everyone has when seeing the dragon. The man completely loses control, and Miria tells him to stay calm. The support explains that Irushia is a partner and mentions that he came to help stop the enemies. Soon, Greg is surprised to see that Miria knows about this crazy situation that is happening. He questions whether she already knows everything and if Agnes is okay. Miria observes her injuries and presumes that Dawes did this. The mage laments, and the protagonist looks at the forest worried. Irushia is eager to advance, and Miria fears that he will reach the village and scare the people. But Gregory says that the dragon is right. He says that Miria is very injured, and it's better for her to go inside with Agnes for safety. Then she asks once again for Irushia to save her life. The support uses the healing ability and recovers almost all of Irushia's hit points. Greg is impressed to see Miria using Marielle's recovery magic. Miria wants to save mana to use on her companions later if they need it. Irushia sees how Miria cares for others and quickly sets out to stop Dawes. Gregory explains that Dawes will likely want to attack the village from behind. The man says that the dragon was a godsend because he himself would never defeat Dawes. He also comments that he never imagined a hellish dragon would ally with humans. Soon, Greg expresses his gratitude to Irushia again. He acknowledges that it was he who saved Miria in the forest last time as well. Irushia is happy to have more people in the village who understand his intentions. Greg says that the name Irushia really suits him perfectly. Then something happens and they stop and stare at something in shock. The poor peasants have all gone to the other life. The duo is greatly shaken by this dreadful sight. Gregory almost curses Dawes' good mother for the madness he has caused. He doesn't know the reason for Dawes' insanity, but it will only stop if they resort to violence against the scoundrel. Both pose gathering aura, and Greg asks the dragon again to help him kick that unfortunate one's butt. However, the large shadow of this abomination approaches. The small stone dragon has just arrived at the village borders. Suddenly, we see Dawes cruelly using a child as a hostage. The peasants try to approach to calm him down and prevent him from causing more trouble. We see that some people have already been hurt at the hands of the son of a good mother. Even the poor family mother has to hide from this monster. The crowd has already set up a major siege to corner the idiot Dawes. But Gregory arrives just in time and tells everyone to flee. The people don't understand what the hell is happening with the crazy Dawes. The miserable Dawes is even using Jonah as a hostage. Greg realizes that Dawes is doing everything to buy time for the dragon to arrive. He tells everyone to run because they will deal with Dawes. Soon someone comes speeding in, seeing Dawes from behind. Dawes only feels the murderous presence of the beast behind him. Irushia appears and immediately strikes this idiot. Now the crowd forgets all morals and wants to flee because of the dragon. The dragon realizes it's good for them to run because no one will be left in the area to get hurt. There is an abnormality in Dawes' status and he is clearly being controlled. But at this moment, he only needs to focus on one thing. The dragon moves very quickly and goes behind the zombie. Dawes knocks the poor boy down and Irushia positions himself. He grabs the boy and can now use violence freely on Dawes without a hostage. However, the undead raises his half-sword to attack our dear Greg. Gregory is no slouch and defends the blow with his spear. Then, the dragon continues holding the boy and prepares some trick. He finishes off Dawes with his powerful dragon tail. The creature has very little life left after that. Irushia doesn't want to kill Dawes because he is just being controlled. Then, the creature plants its feet on the ground. and continues holding the dragon's egg even after it has been crushed in the punch. The protagonist analyzes Dawes' status and it seems he has no abilities. He finds this strange because even the child has skills and Dawes is without. Soon, a girl comes to take the boy away. The crowd starts commenting on the dragon and realizes he is helping Greg. Irushia looks to the side and hears a loud crash. He doesn't know whether to kill Dawes or not. At this point in the game, they have already wasted more time than they should have. Gregory remains focused and concentrated on the mission. The three then stare at each other in an epic manner. The only option is to act right now. Irushia and Gregory charge at Dawes. Greg risks landing a blow on the zombie, but the controlled one scales the watchtower like lightning. The protagonist jumps and exclaims that he won't let the opponent escape. He reaches Dawes and is determined to end this, once and for all. However, he notices something approaching and receives a blow to the face from a place I didn't even see. Gregory realizes something has happened at the top of the tower. The man looks worried and asks about Irushia. Our protagonist sees the small stone dragon already causing chaos in the village. He looks down and tells everyone to run away from there. Irushia understands that he took a dragon's breath because it seemed like he was going to attack his egg. Dawes jumps from the tower like a professional diver and breaks the egg without a shred of shame. The dragon is left perplexed and shocked. Gregory finishes soiling his pants. Dawes is on all fours, looking like a beast after literally killing someone. Now everything has gone downhill, and the stone dragon will be 200% a product of life. The beast stomps on the ground, causing an impact that sends a good part of the village into nothingness. Time to prepare for mass destruction. Even the protagonist, who is on the other side, is affected by the shockwave. Things almost fall on Greg, and he runs away. Dawes laughs like a maniacal beast. The stone dragon imposes itself, intimidating like Godzilla, crushing Dawes completely, and now there's not even a maybe for him. Irushia notices the chaos and tries to get closer. The big creature wants to deliver another one of those thunderous stomps. However, Irushia runs to stop him and slaps the beast in the face. Then the two stare at each other like in epic movie scenes. The protagonist analyzes the dragon's stats and it seems he is even stronger than before. Man, the stone dragon has an arsenal of abilities. Our Calambi also notices that it seems the stone lord has grown in size, but he looks around at all the injured peasants. People lying on the ground, hurt. Another dead under the rubble. Even a child crying over her mother's death. The thing Irushia wanted to avoid the most has happened. He starts to blame himself, thinking he should have killed Dawes earlier. Gregory remains strong, saying he will distract the dragon while they call Marielle to tend to the wounded. The protagonist finds inspiration in this and at least he will try to buy some time. Irushia will finally face the strongest monster in the forest. We see Mavia in the room taking care of Agnes. She looks around and runs out of the house. Marielle notices her running and is surprised. The elf wonders if that is really Miria and doesn't know where she is going. She also sees a bag full of recovery potions. Then the peasants arrive and call for her. They point to the village and stutter in panic. She tries to calm them down, and they say the stone dragon has arrived in the village. Marielle has a look of complete shock and confusion. On the other side, we see Gregory and the dragon fighting against the opponent. Irushia charges in, even scared. Godzilla prepares another powerful attack, and is stopped by a light tap from the dragon. The protagonist takes advantage of this as a boost. He lands a violent slap to the dragon's face, but the stone dragon is so resilient that it only took 14 damage. Now the protagonist has to be careful because a counterattack is coming. Here comes the dragon's mouth to take a bite out of the protagonist. Irushia just accepts that he has been cooked now. But Gregory starts spinning his spear. He unleashes a barrage of strikes to the dragon's stomach. However, the blows deal no damage at all. At least these attacks from Gregory serve to save our protagonist. Irushia realizes that the dragon has attention deficit and gets distracted very easily. And it's not even a matter of size, because they are quite similar, but with this, they can alternate attacks and divert the dragon's attention. The beast tries to crush again, and the protagonist doesn't allow it. Gregory also narrowly dodges an attack. The three stare at each other, and the stone dragon is the most intimidating among them. Greg makes a thrust that still doesn't deal damage. The stone dragon glances by, complaining a bit. Irushia uses his paralyzing claws, and it also has no effect. Not even a negative status does this overpowered beast suffer. None of Irushia's abilities can do anything to the enemy. There's nothing he can do. The solution is to try to find some weak point on its body. He tries to hit the tips of its fingers, then under its belly, in the folds of its knees. Nothing works. and the protagonist remembers that he dealt double damage to its head once, but if he approaches carelessly, he will have to deal with a bite, weight, or the breath. Irushia is in shock because the beast wants to destroy everything with its breath. He keeps thinking of various ways to prevent Greg from getting seriously hurt. At this point, he can't just act as a shield. However, some arrows appear and hit the dragon's eye, causing critical damage. The protagonist is surprised by these arrows. It's the peasants who have come to help as well. Gregory notices that everyone has come too. They are all aiming for the beast's eyes. Irushia knows that the arrows will help a lot more to create a distraction. Then he is hit by the blows from Irushia and Gregory and by the rain of arrows. The stone dragon gets angry and tries to use earthquake, but Irushia appears to stop him just in time. He spits a blast of baby breath in the scoundrel's face, leaving him nicely toasted. At least it served to prevent the attack and a possible counterattack. The protagonist pauses for a moment and analyzes how much damage has been caused to him. Irushia is incredulous at what he sees. After all this, the powerful one, only took 21 damage. They have already spent almost everything they had and haven't even scratched the guy. He realizes that he won't be able to hold the monster for much longer. Then he sees a boy helping someone. He looks to the other side and sees almost the same scene. He discovers that there are still many people trapped in the rubble. Irushia jumps and pulls one of the peasants out from under the debris. He now wonders if he should go help with the rescue. He continues to reflect until something comes his way that makes him alert. It seems to be the tail of the stone reaching this distance. The attack is almost certain and everyone is going to the grave. Our protagonist manages to stop the blow at the last moment, and in this position, the guy looks like a tank. Irushia continues to hold on with great effort. The peasants were just waiting for the fight. After this, Irushia even leveled up his bravery. The little hero also leveled up, but after so much effort, the protagonist succumbs and is struck. Gregory becomes worried and shouts for him. Dragonoid slams his back against a rock and takes even more damage. Just this creature's tail has an attack power of 183. He exclaims for Gregory to run away from there. The stone tries to reach the spearman. It uses an earthquake, and fortunately, Greg makes a heroic Superman leap and dodges. However, Murphy's Law is so strong today that a rock comes flying in his direction, and unfortunately, it crushes our dear hero who has been fighting bravely. The village's scenery is apocalyptic. The stone dragon remains at the center of all this disgrace he caused. Gregory is in bad shape and has a severe bleeding status. Even with all the effort, they are not managing to keep the fight balanced. However, the stone begins to look around, expressing some confusion. The stone was disoriented after sending everything flying. Irushia needs to try something else before everything falls apart completely. He thinks about evolving and remembers that his stats will revert to level 1 if he does that. Gormanthand is not a good option due to the form and side effects. The healing dragon would be an okay choice given the bad circumstances they are in. But the question is, how powerful this magic will be at level 1. Soon, the voice of God emerges again and tells him to run away from there. The voice continues saying that it has expectations of him and that it's not worth dying in this place. The protagonist gets irritated that this voice keeps appearing and filling his head with nonsense. Irushia tells the voice to do the opposite of what it advises. It then says that Irushia is very obsessed with humans. The voice finds him so interesting because he is the complete opposite of that other one. Now, the protagonist can make predictions about the future with small simulations. He must use this if he wants to survive from now on. Some probabilities of winning begin to appear. The best possibility of winning is to flee or turn into Jormungand. It seems that all of this is only meant to further break his spirit. He then decides that he will turn into the little dragon to have a chance to recover. Gregory is still alive and tries to take a recovery potion. The protagonist looks at Greg's hand and recognizes the medicine. He must get the peasant out from under the stone so he can recover better. But what happens is that he is the one who gets healed. Gregory stretches out his hand and calls for Irushia to come closer. The man does not understand how a dragon like him is going so far for humans, but now he is the only one he can trust. Greg holds the dragon's paw. He says he doesn't mind if Irushia devours him to gain more strength. The dragon doesn't quite understand what Greg meant. Gregory explains that he doesn't gain dark power because he doesn't attack humans. Then he says he would give his life to empower Irushia to defeat the stone dragon. Many thoughts pass through the clown's mind at this moment. Then Gregory says he begs Irushia to save the village and everyone for him. The protagonist remembers that Miria is also one of those who sacrifices herself for others. He enters deep agony and is very close to going insane. Gregory makes a brief, dramatic pause, and he apologizes to Erucia for all these things. He thanks him, and Erucia simply cuts off his head. The peasants are incredulous at what they have seen. They realize it seems like the creature cut off Greg's head. Erucia reflects that Greg knew he was fighting with a lot of hesitation. Then the peasants soil themselves again, thinking that Erucia is evil. Erucia acknowledges that he did not have enough determination. He thinks that Gregory was the second human to understand him, so he will not disappoint him. He evolves and says that he will never allow his hopes to have been in vain. All statuses and levels of evil rise after Erucia cuts Greg's coconut. The protagonist remembers that he had an adult version of the plague dragon in his evolutions. It really exists, and he wonders how this dragon crushes the other options. But now, he will finally have a chance to face the stone in a mano a mano. We see his stacks, and he has taken on a really cool appearance. The villagers simply gave up on life at that moment. Then the voice says that this dragon only destroys everything, and Erucia is no longer intimidated by that. Now, he has reached a point where he can no longer return to being human. Our protagonist clenches his fists and faces the stone dragon. Stone remains irritated and is not even fazed by the protagonist's new form. Erucia knows that the little stone dragon was only there to retrieve his egg. He frowns and prepares for something. The dragon thinks that he simply cannot let him destroy the village any further. There is no expectation that the peasants will flee on their own. He reflects that he can no longer allow the fight to happen there and cause more chaos around. Soon, the two stand face to face, and they stare at each other because now we are going to see a real kaiju fight. The peasants remain all messed up and scared to death. Plague Dragon clenches his fists and supports himself on the ground. Little Stone Dragon does almost the same thing. An epic and tragic atmosphere begins to build, and the peasants just watch. They stare at each other in one last silence before the brawl, until the protagonist headbutts Stone in the chest. The two collide, and now it turns into more of an explosion than a Michael Bay movie. Our protagonist feels the impact in his chest, but he plants his feet on the ground and cannot fall. No way. He stomps on the stone, creating a loud crash. Stone tries to hit Erucia with a monstrous kick. He defends with great difficulty using his arm. Then he lands a straight punch in the counterattack. The stone dragon becomes quite irritated. Soon he prepares for another crushing session for Erucia. However, he receives a hit to the ear again to stop being foolish. They reposition themselves, and Stone is ultra-muscular with huge arms from steroids. Erucia realizes that his attacks have become more powerful, and he has also become a monster. Now he can withstand the enemy's blows and still hit the weak points on his face. But his movements are restricted because he does not want to cause more destruction in the surroundings. Stone prepares to probably use an earthquake. Erucia sees an opening due to the gravitational center. He grabs Stone's fingers. He holds on with so much force that his veins bulge. He almost loses control from the sheer power he's using, and he starts pushing the stone dragon purely with brute force. He finally manages to push the big guy away from the village. The villagers continue to watch this new Godzilla movie from the sidelines. They wonder if the two have really left. They realize that they have indeed gone, and now they have a chance to recover. Miria arrives running, calling for the peasants. The villagers recognize Miria and Marielle, who came to save the day. The first thing Miria asks is about Erucia. Then one of them says that the dragon killed Gregory and ran away. Miria does not believe it, and the peasant insists that he is not lying and tells the whole story. She looks to the side and notices something. A fallen body, probably dead. It is Gregory himself who is there, and Miria saw the tragedy with her own eyes. Marielle gets angry for not knowing what is happening and still having to deal with this. The master asks her for help to save the sick. Then Miria looks shaken at the forest, thinking about what happened to Erucia. Marielle is on this difficult mission of being support and having to save everyone at the worst time. She gives orders to the peasants to retreat or help guide and rescue the others. The elf is satisfied because Miria's potions were very useful in the recovery, but she looks to the side and Miria has disappeared again, just like she does every single day. Marielle asks where she went, and the people say that she simply vanished. One peasant says that maybe she went to see the dragons or something like that. They both stare at each other, and the silence says it all. Marielle leaves the rest to him and walks away, somewhat irritated with her student. She is walking through this apocalyptic battlefield in search of the dragons. She hears a loud crash and imagines it is Erucia fighting. Our protagonist continues pushing Stone to the depths of hell. He keeps his hands firmly on him, and I still don't know how he didn't let out a grunt along the way with so much force used. Stone Dragon lets out a foul breath at him, but the protagonist jumps and manages to dodge. The difference in HP between them is almost unfair. Now that there are no humans nearby, he can attack without holding back. Stone lets out a charming draconic growl. Then he charges at our protagonist. He tries to strike him, and the protagonist dodges. In addition to dodging, he immediately throws a cross punch at the enemy's face. Irushia no longer needs to play the dodging game to prevent the surroundings from being destroyed. Stone gets really angry and even starts to show some expression. He prepares to bite because he always does that when under pressure. However, he receives another hook to the jaw from our dragon son of Ryu. Irushia's speed completely overwhelms Stone's, and the irritation of the little stone dragon only increases. He raises his little hand maliciously. Using the earthquake ability, Irushia spreads his wings for the first time and flies away from the magic. The other one lets out a scream of rage because he missed Irushia. Our dragon's flying ability is also a vast improvement compared to before. After putting on an aerial show, he lands somewhere. He lands right on the back of the slow stone. Now, Irushia is going to give the little stone dragon a beating. He's going to turn the big guy into his punching bag. Our protagonist starts hammering the stone guy. The scene now turns into JoJo, and Irushia starts hitting him with a barrage of punches. He keeps punching but realizes something is wrong. He throws another punch, and Stone's face doesn't even crack a little. Stone manages to take very little damage even from this beast called Irushia. The big guy is so tough that even Irushia's fists start to take damage. The protagonist grits his teeth and sees that this isn't going to end well. He makes a face of pain and indignation. The dragon feels as if he's punching his own fists. He prepares to throw another punch, but decides to stop halfway. That's the same as punching a brick wall. He decides he must keep applying pressure here and now. Stone remains extremely irritated. Irushia jumps on top of him. He holds tightly onto the unfortunate one's wrist. Then he grabs his neck, making the big guy scream in pain. He thinks there must be another weak point besides the head. He devises the strategy while riding on his back like a stallion. Then he throws a punch at the guy's neck. Now, Stone finally shows a little reaction of pain. Irushia discovers that his weakest point is the neck. He will keep applying pressure and thinks about giving his neck a twist. He plants his feet firmly on the ground. He transforms into a wild hurricane out of nowhere, dealing damage to Stone. The monster continues to take damage and complains of pain. He prepares a super smash punch like All Might and develops and applies the neck breaker ability. Thank God, this immortal's HP drops to 0. Stone falls defeated after who knows how long being a nuisance. Irushia is extremely out of breath, but satisfied because he finally beat this overpowered foe. He gains a lot of experience and levels up significantly. However, he ended up taking the whole village down with him. Also, Gregory himself is gone, this man who showed little, but proved to be a great hero. Our protagonist begins to lament all of this deeply. He cries out loud and screams in a mix of fury and sadness. However, he hears someone calling his name. Irushia looks to see who it is, and realizes it's Miria who came to see him. She asks him if he evolved again. She praises him for being incredible and questions if he defeated the stone dragon. Then she pauses for a moment and starts talking about Gregory. Irushia becomes serious and makes a small noise. Then they stare at each other, and it's making me cry in an absurd way. Irushia knows there's no way he can explain this to her. The fact is that he killed Gregory, no matter the excuse. Soon he hears another voice telling him to stay away from Miriam. Several projectiles are fired at him, and he defends himself. It's Muriel who arrived to supposedly save her student. She says she's not very good at attack magic, but it will do. But Miria asks her teacher to stop, because that was her old baby dragon friend. Muriel stops casting the attack and questions if this big dragon is really the baby. The elf can't believe that this thing is the baby dragon. She even repeats the same phrase again out of sheer astonishment. Miria explains that he has evolved, and Mariel doesn't believe he could have evolved in such a short time. But she starts to accept the idea a little because he is not being hostile towards them. And she also thinks it's a bad idea to provoke that big, creepy pup. Miria tries to say that what they heard about Gregory must have been just a... However, Muriel warns her to simply stay away from that dangerous plague dragon. The elf explains that just being near him is bad enough. The protagonist remembers that his scales spread a miasma of curse. She looks back and still tries to find a way to handle the situation. Miria is so wonderful that she still puts herself forward to defend her friend. Our dragon is moved, and I am about to shed tears here. He prepares an attack that goes straight towards Miria. Irushia apologizes for this, and Miria looks impressed. The blow grazes the support. Miria is left with a mix of shock and anxiety. Mariel screams that he has shown his true nature and casts light magic at him. Irushia easily defends himself from the blows, but he pretends to be quite affected and even lets out a roar. He opens those pretty black wings and takes off, leaving the two behind. Mariel is impressed that he actually retreated and wonders if it's because of her magic. Then the two just watch Irushia fly beyond the village. Miria imagines and questions that perhaps the evolution made his nature more wild. She can't believe what happened because Irushia even fought for them. But we only see those damned Mahar wolves appearing in the background. We return to Irushia, who continues flying on the horizon. The protagonist thinks that he had to do this so she wouldn't come looking for him in the forest again. Now there is nothing more he can do, and he has lost any chance of associating with humans. With that, the level of resistance to loneliness increases. Then we see a strange figure walking through the forest. It's that hellish gremlin from before, who caused all this chaos. The crazy guy is going insane just because he is incredulous about the twist that the plague dragon has given through his plans. That weird third eye of his is even swelling up. The ugly one never imagined that the stone dragon would lose in such a way. Thanks to Irushia, things have become more interesting for him. He transforms into a big demon amalgam and says he will pay a visit to the village. Our protagonist looks at the horizon after all the saga he has been through. He scans the sky and can now see from above the mountain that brought him so many challenges. But his wings start to falter, and the guy crashes to the ground in a rather ridiculous manner. He lies there as if he were trying to get home after a hangover. Irushia kind of already imagined that flying for a long time would leave him all messed up afterward. He narrowly avoided falling directly into that classic abyss. It wouldn't be nice if he were to take a dive into that little river. He looks back and notices something. He ended up stepping on some flowers during the forced landing he had to make. The protagonist realizes that there are indeed some flowers planted around. He feels upset that he accidentally crushed them. This flower is the famous Irushia that we have heard so much about, and I just cried again because of Miria. This type of flower only blooms everywhere except in soils where monsters dwell. Irushia remembers that Miria said his name comes from a flower. In the flower dictionary, it symbolizes heroism and courage. The protagonist remembers Gregory and thinks that Irushia no longer matches anything with him. He hesitated at the last moment and was unable to kill Dawes. He feels that he is no longer an Irushia at all. The voice of God says that he can no longer change titles, and he replies that he knows that well. Next time, he says he will not misjudge things anymore. But this is not over yet because the one who orchestrated the attack on the village is still at large. Our protagonist has a promise to fulfill even without any more ties to the village. However, something pulls him out of his philosophical thoughts. His present sensor is alerting him to something. It's something moving right in the middle of the bushes. Then, the famous and beloved Black Lizard Princess appears all cute. Irushia recognizes her and is surprised by this unexpected reunion. The little princess jumps all cute and lovely at her old friend. The protagonist asks if she was looking for him and how she recognized him. He thanks her for keeping the hairy wolves away from the village. Her licks are much more sensitive now with the size difference. Irushia remembers that the monkeys also did a great job in the last battle. The problem is that it's no longer possible to be close to anyone because of the cursed scales. Dragonoid thinks he has no option but to say goodbye to all those old friends. He starts to think about how long it takes for the scaled disease to affect others, until his calculations are interrupted by a tickling session from the princess. He decides that he'll resolve these issues later. He soon asks for permission to switch places with the Black Lizard for a moment. We see the desolate village as if a nuclear bomb had fallen on it. Someone walks alone through this scene, worthy of a fallout, and it seems there's another figure, isolated in the darkness of the trees. It's Miria, who appears to be very depressed and giving off bad vibes. Muriel knows that all of this must have been a shock for the poor student. The elf is also quite worried about the state of the Guardian Stone. They will have to abandon the village if the situation becomes more precarious than it already is. Muriel knows she needs to go check on the stone, even if it's too dangerous. She uses magic to hide and not be easily noticed by the monsters. She wonders if the plague dragon is still around the village. She states that it would be good to have that information as well. Let's go a little deeper into the forest, and we see that Irushia is hiding among the trees. The protagonist considers that he will need a new base of operations in the future. However, he doesn't want to leave before discovering who was controlling Dawes and the wolves. Irushia feels he has an idea of where to look for these weird bug statuses. The only other time he saw this was with that devilish slime. He decides to hide right there because of the positioning near the path leading to the village. But Irushia knows they might very well retreat after taking that beating. He stops and watches the black lizard climb a tree. He didn't want to involve her in these problems anymore, but it's going to be very difficult to get rid of her. And the lizard's poison can also be used as a trump card on various occasions. Then his sense of presence activates. The protagonist thinks they are enemies because they are heading toward the village. Irushia frighteningly steps out from behind the trees and comes face to face with two figures. He thinks he's finally going to take down the damn sneaky slime. However, it seems that it's not exactly what he thought it would be. They are just two children, or at least that's what they appear to be. Irushia realizes he made a whole drama, and it's apparently nothing serious. He wonders what the hell this duo of kids is doing in the forest. Soon he remembers that Miria was also looking for some twins, but he doesn't understand why they showed up at this point in the game. However, as not everything is rosy, they are not children, as everyone suspected. A liquid that comes from the pegs straight for Irushia. He is caught off guard by this bizarre craziness. The slime says it got a little too excited. The protagonist recognizes that this is the damn slime he was looking for. That miserable creature can perfectly hide and disguise its presence. Then the chimera transforms into its supposed true form and is all bugged out. Now, Irushia can at least see some of the monster's abilities. Our dragon even curses when he discovers this astonishing number of skills the creature has. Soon, the evil slime decides it will share some news with Irushia. It reveals that it is the only individual to hear the great word of God. Irushia feels confused and curious about what the slime just said. Then he realizes that it also possesses the voice of God and the ability to check statuses. The little villain also says that Irushia did it a favor by defeating the little stone dragon. Our protagonist starts to consider that this creature irritated the stone dragon. This being was already planning to make the adventurers fight against the stone dragon and loot the bodies of those who lost. But they ended up disappearing, and the creature decided it should go after the villagers. Now it has taken the abilities of the stone, and it's only a matter of time before it destroys the village. Irushia realizes that this guy's ability seems to be stealing other skills from dead bodies. The slime says it's interested in Irushia's abilities, but he is too much for its little truck. Our protagonist gets really angry and decides to take care of this son of a fruit right now. He delivers a furious blow to the creature, and it simply turns to water and doesn't even feel it. He throws another punch, and nothing happens again. He takes a look and sees that this is no joke. The little princess just watches from the top of the branch. But the slime taunts him, saying it knows there's something behind the trees. Then it gets riddled with bullets from the clay gun. Yet nothing happens once again. Irushia can't tell if the creature doesn't take damage or if the damage is recovered. The villain says it's the perfect opportunity for him to take the bodies of the villagers and Pedra. And since Irushia is going to end up in the way anyway, he'll have to give the protagonist a beating first. The description of the slime is of a monster with low intelligence and strength. These creatures reproduce by division, and there is a rare mutation of a blue slime. The blue ones develop different abilities and are mocked by the rest of the colony, but they usually don't last more than a few days of life. Then we see a blue slime holding an egg. A white figure observes this image and wonders what the chances of this are. Before dying, the slime found an egg weaker than itself. This creature has the ability to steal other skills and has even absorbed the condition to become the demon king that this white figure granted to the egg. He doesn't believe this happened because that condition was something unique that couldn't be stolen. The figure imagines it was due to the period of instability between reincarnation times. So he decides that this skill-stealing ability will extract the respective memories from the user. The memories of the reincarnated egg will be taken, and the slime will have some degree of intelligence. The slime then becomes one of the candidates as well. This figure grants the slime the voice of God and status checking. The big white one, who seems to be the god of the world, says this is his gift to the slime. He is counting on the slime. We return to the duel, and the slime launches a bunch of amoebas at the dragon. Irushia observes these bizarre things approaching. The lizard princess is also in the middle of this fun. She just watches this fight of the chosen ones by the god of this world. Our dragon takes some damage, even with high guard. Irushia wonders if the armor skill is for defense. The slime is scared of the princess because it knows she is lurking. It tries to assert itself, thinking that its poison resistance is at maximum. It says it just needs to deal with Irushia's powerful attacks, and then it's a win. This slime is so good that it even uses Gear Third and punches Irushia. Another arm appears over the dragon, and he only notices now. The giant hand buries the face of the pest with all its violence. The dragon can't go on the defensive because the slime is too crafty, so he thinks he has to give a little of himself to the slime too. He uses the new ability Wind Slash with those beautiful wings of his. The gusts of wind hit the anomaly and apparently cause damage. Irushia approaches, looking like a vampire bat from a bad movie. The big slime analyzes the Wind Slash, which is a cutting projectile type. Soon he becomes skinny and wants to return the favor to Irushia. The stuck-up chosen one suddenly uses a shockwave from a distance. Our dragon remembers this is the same move Dawes used. On one side, we have the Wind Slash, and on the other, the shockwave. The forest turns into an epic battlefield between cutting projectile abilities. Irushia's MP is already going down the drain while the slime has automatic recovery. The big slime even jokes that it's time for Irushia to use a skill that doesn't cost MP. He accepts the provocation and decides to use a classic ability. This role is absurdly absurd in the most absurd way. Even the slime is impressed, and rightly so. The villain gets scared and uses the turtle ability to harden. Supersonic Giant Dragon is a millimeter away from colliding with the slime, but he receives a beautiful parry from the chosen blue slime. He spins and is changed in direction. He repositions himself and gets irritated with this anticlimactic outcome. Then the creature mocks him, saying, "The dragon has no chance at all." Irushia gets excited upon discovering that the slime is looking at his titles. The protagonist knows he needs to take down the opponent with a single absolute attack. He transforms again into Supersonic Ball and charges at the creature. The big slime calls him a fool and says that whatever he tries will continue to be futile. Soon he exits the sphere form just as he gets close to the slime. Irushia grabs him and the boy is left in shock. And he turns into a NASA rocket shooting up to infinity and beyond. He flies into space like a Superman in an epic way. He gets so high that they can see the tiny road down below. The half-baked villain turns into some amoeba and panics a little. He feels everything spinning and doesn't understand what's happening. Irushia uses the roll in midair and looks like Saturn spinning in space. From an ultra-high elevation to ground level. Uses a star drop and throws the slime to the ground as if it were a football pass. The creature starts to dissolve due to the show of bubbles it just suffered. It descends to the ground like a literal shooting star. Slimo manages to turn into a spider halfway through, and even shoots web from its rear. Now, the MP of our dear plague dragon has gone to the end for good. So far, he can't believe how this rascal got away. The scoundrel says he really can't fly, but he has the tricks of spiders. He jokes that Irushia has ideas that are not of a conventional dragon. He smiles and doesn't even notice the princess appearing behind him. Then he looks at her and is surprised and gives a shove, sending the lizard flying. But his face shows not a hint of concern. The other creature gets irritated because it was caught off guard. That even took a bite and received a lower status of poisoning. He doesn't understand why there's a timer behind him since he has resistance. Irushia expected nothing less from his companion and plans to get out of there. Then he wonders if that bizarre creature has the speed to keep up with the two. Slimo is like Albert Einstein and uses slowness to prevent them from escaping. Irushia remembers this ability because of the jar turtles. The protagonist throws himself to prevent the ability from hitting the caterpillar. Soon the slime hears some strange noises. It's those pesky wolves that never give any peace. Our dragon is impressed that there are still a few of them left. Slimo says these are the last of his hideout. Then he turns into a little ghost and passes over the dragon's hand. Irushia tries to stop him by breathing fire, and nothing happens. Then the slime captures one of the wolves and uses it as a shield against Irushia's fire breath. Our protagonist is shocked by what the slime just did. Unfortunately, the princess is captured by this disgusting slime. Irushia wonders if the plan is to force the lizard to use the antidote on him. It would be really messed up for the princess to be taken hostage by a jerk like the slime, but the creature turns into crystal and traps the black lizard, becoming a complete bizarre situation, and no one knows what's happening anymore. On the other side, we see the sentinel rock that protects the village from monsters. Moriel crouches down and checks if the place is still active and preserved. It seems everything is okay and under control. Her next step is to get a detailed report from Miria and a plan for She is interrupted by some noise in the forest. She hears what seems to be a battle between two giant monsters, but she stops and thinks that there shouldn't be many giant monsters in the area. She questions whether it could be the plague dragon fighting something. The elf is in doubt whether to go check it out or return to the village safely. Then she decides to put an end to the story so she won't have regrets later. Mariel turns to the sky and mutters a curse. We return to our duo and the black lizard remains trapped in the crystal. Irusia just watches from afar, trying to understand what happened. The slime trapped the lizard and she is showing no signs of life or death. Our protagonist gets angry at the thought that the slime might suffocate the lizard, then the Mahar show up to be a nuisance, because that's all they're good for. The wolves charge at Irusia, but the protagonist ignores their bites and advances toward the slime. That thing is directly in front of him. The dragon punches the tip of the crystal, where the slime is apparently located, but he grits his teeth in anger, because that damn crystal is incredibly hard. The plague dragon sends a series of punches at the thing and continues to have no effect. Soon he realizes he can't get angry and must keep calm and patient. He can't just use the star drop bay because it will affect the lizard too. And the protagonist discovers that the slime's recovery ability has declined. He thinks about ending this the same way he did with the stone dragon. Then he turns into the draconic ball and intends to create a dap using consecutive strikes. The crystal finally receives a fracture. Irusia brings his hand back to the tip of the crystal and initiates the neck breaker. He hits it squarely, turning that crystalline structure into dust. The little crystals turn into the same material as the slime. Irusia is shocked by this madness that is this slime. At least the dear black lizard princess has been freed. Our dragon crawls closer to his companion. Now, Irusia wants to be triple sure that the lizard will be in a safe place. Slimo appears almost naked and cries out to nerf the princess's poison. Irusia looks indignant because this creature has already become the Madara that never dies. The protagonist notices that the poison counter has left the slime's head. The little villain confirms to him and to us that the poison will no longer be effective. The antidote ability has been taken from the lizard. The slime stole her ability and used it on himself. He reveals that he can steal abilities from any target that is stationary. However, he wants to steal even more abilities from this lizard. Irusia sees that now this idiot has his eyes on the lizard. The problem is that the princess cannot follow commands to abandon Irusia. Then, the slime has the audacity to ask what Irusia did with the body of the monkey. Our protagonist thinks about what to do to aim this hellish appeal. The slime looks at the dragon and mocks to himself that the big guy is out of options. However, something leaves the little villain worried. He is shocked because the protagonist also has the voice of God with him. He looks to the sky and begins to question God why Irusia has this ability. The voice of God responds that Irusia is something he prepared for the slime's growth. It reveals that he is the candidate who will make himself evolve. The slime does not believe that this weakling is his candidate. God asks if he is sure about that. The little villain responds that yes, because no one will be stronger than him. He becomes completely irritated and jealous because Irusia hears the voice of God too. He says that the memories he acquired are all his. The slime strikes a sinister villain pose and sends the wolves after the protagonist. Irusia is already nervous from how much this creature throws wolves at him. He hits each one and sends both back to the lobby. Then another hairy wolf emerges from the beyond to attack Irusia as well. Not even the protagonist saw where this third one came from. He thinks that the Mahars are not a problem, and the creature turns into slime at that moment. The guy transforms into a dew in the man's hand. A second later, it turns into spikes and pierces Draco's arm. The big dragon even retracts his mouth in pain. Then it climbs up his arm like a parasite and plans to take control of him. Irusia tries to get rid of it, but cannot. He is indignant because this slimy stuff won't come off his hand. He notices something and becomes confused. This damn slime can also drain his life. The slime says that Irusia just suffered a checkmate from him. The protagonist then considers that there is no way out and will have to resort to that. He swallows his saliva and prepares to do something really crazy. He lifts his feet off the ground in a big jump. He takes flight and quickly reaches a considerable height. The slime tries to imagine what the hell the dragon will do now. The little villain remains in a half-human form and says he will let the dragon repeat the dose. He says that Irusia will not be able to throw this down. Irusia gives a little smile because the slime guessed wrong about the plan. Our protagonist does not know if he will survive, but he just wants to end this nonsense. Soon the slime starts to get confused because Irusia is taking too long to roll. The princess watches her friend flying in the high sky. She uses the roll and starts to follow him on the ground. Marielle also notices our dear dragon, and she observes him flying along with the slime through the forest. Even the monkeys manage to see their leader in the sky. The slime is already freaking out without even knowing what will happen. They approach the great and classic abyss. Irusia positions himself in the middle of it, and we see the deadly river down below. The villain realizes that Irusia is crazy in the head and starts begging for his life. Then he dives into the deadly plunge without hesitating for even a second. We see what happened through Irusia's mind, and he thinks he will never return to the village. He also thinks he will leave this forest where he lived for some time. Then the slime desperately questions if the dragon does not know he will die if he does this. The protagonist is a great aura farmer and knows he is completely aware of that. Muriel and the lizard princess watch the dragon making the monster dive into the river. The poor black lizard is shocked by this. Irusia advances directly to the tip of the boulder to be lethal. Now, the tables have turned, and all the slime's cunning has gone down the drain. He is indignant because he is going to die in a place like this. Irusia smashes the slime with all his might at the tip of the boulder. The little guy's head goes flying with his eye bulging out. Irusia finishes the job and his strength is exhausted. Soon, the voice of God appears to annoy him while they both fall. It mocks, saying it seems that the candidate ended up being the slime friend. The little villain sinks into the water and murmurs a few things, until it completely disappears at the bottom of the river. Our protagonist also sinks and becomes sonic in the water levels. He starts to think about what happened and if the impact caused an explosion. He sees the damage counter and realizes that this is not cruel at all. Little by little, he begins to fade away. The little lizard princess is going to have a heart attack after this. She looks into the abyss, screaming, and even I feel sorry for her now. So, let's head to the devastated village. The adventurers from Malusia's team arrive, and they have no idea what the hell of destruction happened there. Malusia says it wasn't a natural disaster, and the other one speculates it might have been a monster. One of them manages to find some traces amidst the chaos. He points to which way the supposed monsters went. Miria sits down, feeling depressed, leaning against a rock. She reflects that there's a lot of trouble in this whole story. Miria starts to suspect that maybe Irusia missed the attack on purpose. Then she thinks about what the others said about Gregory. The adventurers analyze what remains of the stone dragon. Malusia notices Miria and asks if she is a girl from this village. She asks if it was her who killed Pedra, and Miria replies that it was Irusia. Malusia praises this Irusia, and Miria says he is not from this village. The support character is about to explain who Irusia really is when she is interrupted by Mariel, who arrives. Mariel says there's still a bit of a mess among the villagers. Then she tells Miria to follow her and that she wants to talk to her later. She warns the adventurers to have a chat with her later at her house. Thus, we all head to the house of this beautiful half-elf. The adventurers arrive at the property and settle in. Miria looks at her arm and sees that it is now 100%. The support character finds it amazing that this adventurer's healing was so effective. Another one confesses that it's hard to believe that a battle of giant monsters happened there. Malusia says it was definitely a vision from hell. She bows to Mariel and offers her deep apologies. She knows they arrived late and couldn't help the village. Mariel comforts her, saying that their mission was just to find the missing people, and there was no way to predict that an attack would happen in the village. One of them says that even so, defeating 2 rank B monsters is no joke. He also comments that Malusia's team is as lucky as ever. So they decide to send a report to the guild about the plague dragon, but Miria tells them to wait a bit longer on that matter. The adventurer questions if they think the dragon was protecting the village. Mariel reflects on the whole situation and remembers the dragon saying it would never return to the village again. She knows that whether they like it or not, the dragon helped prevent the worst in the village. The duo of adventurers finds it hard to believe because the creature is a plague dragon. The annoying explorer thinks that all the dragon's help was just a big coincidence. Miria remembers when she and Arusia worked together and disagrees with his statement. Malusia also denies her companion's hasty assertion. The swordswoman says that no one has much information about plague dragons. Another annoying one mocks because plague dragons are one of the 3 disaster beasts. Malusia responds that there might be diversity among dragons and that one cannot generalize. She also says she would love to see a friendly plague dragon, and that wins Miria's heart. Muriel also notices that Miria liked Malusia. The swordswoman asks everyone to investigate the case better and then send a report. Miria feels more relieved and is about to say something, but Mariel stops her. She tells her to change clothes, and Miria confirms that she will. The support character leaves the room and the elf strikes a reflective Sasuke pose. Mario warns that she needs to leave and tells everyone to make themselves comfortable. Soon she leaves and doesn't even know where to start with the workload she has. Melucia calls for the village chief before she goes to help the others. She asks for permission to call the guild's dismemberment team. The swordswoman explains that this team separates the good materials from the bad, and a portion of the sales from these materials goes to the village. Mariel says she will add rewards and Melucia declines. She says she won't accept rewards as an apology for arriving late. And she also says she will do anything to make up for the mistake she made. Mariel says that actually there is something they can do for her. Melucia asks what that request would be. The elf comments about Miria, who was in their conversation earlier. She asks them to take Miria away from the village. We see Miria herself rummaging through some clothes in the wardrobe. Miria remembers that Irushia put his life at risk for the village, and she couldn't even thank him. Our support already knows that he took a deep dive into the abyss. She hopes that Irushia has recovered from that swimming attempt he made. Suddenly, a kind of bunny ball appears. This little creature is all lively, walking somewhere. It stops in front of Irushia and looks at him, somewhat confused. The protagonist opens his eyes and the bunny freezes in shock. Irushia rises, looking like a Rayquaza, and he is grateful that at least he managed to survive. But before he finishes the sentence, he realizes that something is not quite right. Our dragon finds himself in what seems to be the misfortune of a desert. The little creature, so crazy that it even rolls its eyes, asks himself where on earth he has ended up. Irushia finds himself lost in a vast desert and doesn't even know how he got there. He remembers that he was fighting the pesky slime and wonders if he won. The protagonist realizes that he gained experience and leveled up to 20. This means he managed to scare the slime and even does a little dance. He thinks he should have leveled up more for the troubles he went through. Irushia really wishes he could have more answers about the voice of God. The dragon looks left and right and only sees a ton of sand. He imagines if by some chance he ended up in another continent. He lifts off the ground and shows off his toned body. He rises almost to cloud height and the only thing he sees is sand and more sand. He observes everything and questions what is happening around him. He only finds sand and a flat, completely uninteresting horizon. Irushia doesn't even know which direction the forest is in. However, he remembers that he won't be able to live with anyone if he goes back to the forest. Our protagonist is alone again. Until he resolves this scale issue, he knows he can't return. Fortunately, he still has one more chance to evolve and get out of this situation. Now, he will return to the initial strategy of gaining experience and evolving. However, he doesn't even know what monsters live in this vast desert, until he notices that little bunny ball again. The creature is so weak that it almost makes him feel sorry for it. Irushia reflects that it has been a while since he saw such a weak status. Then, the bunny moves away and starts trembling all over. This little creature isn't worth eating or gain XP from, and something tells him that he will gain dark titles for killing this poor bunny. From beneath the ground, a baby scorpion emerges. He observes and sees that the scorpion clearly wants to capture the bunny. Soon, the little ball just tries to run away with a crying face. Unexpectedly, the scorpion gets hit on the back and is left with a sliver of HP. If Irushia, who crushed the ugly creature, he couldn't control himself and almost literally gave the bunny a helping hand. The protagonist retracts his claw and the bunny looks on in confusion. He sees the scorpion practically flattened and takes the opportunity to take revenge and charges at the scorpion. The bunny seems to turn into a vampire and starts sucking the scorpion's wound. Irushia just watches to see what will happen. This bunny has an expression of someone who is really enjoying what they are doing. He finishes off the creature, and Irushia doesn't gain experience for being much stronger than them. Our protagonist sees that the bunny is cute and completely psychotic. The dragonoid realizes that this creature is probably not a predator of anyone. Irushia just wishes good luck to the little creature in trying to survive. But at that moment, a creature from the sand appears, and it's the same type of scorpion from a few seconds ago. Irushia does the same thing. The bunny repeats the dose, and Irushia doesn't understand how this little guy had survived until now. The scorpion is being devoured down to the last drop, and the dragon notices something. The bunny turns into a big, fat bunny. The guy's evolution is simply becoming chubbier. Irushia doesn't understand how the little creature gains experience if it only finishes off the nearly dead enemy. He looks at Irushia with an expression of wanting to eat much more. Now, Irushia has simply become the hand that feeds the bunny. The protagonist realizes that there is a whole bunch of these scorpions underground. Our favorite dragon lets out a roar and tells everyone to come out of the holes they are hiding in. He prepares his deadly claw just to strike the backs of the deer arachnids. He leaves everyone practically lifeless, and the bunny just watches with a psychopathic joy as the semi-bodies fall. Now, it's the bunny's chance to feast like a king. Irusha decides to leave and advises the bunny not to be found by anyone stronger. Dragon Praga walks through this terrible and endless sea of sand. The only thing he sees is cactus and sand. Then the protagonist decides that he must look for something to eat as well. He realizes that he is not being affected by this hellish sun. First of all, he needs to find a reliable source of water. Irusha looks at a cactus that resembles a little human more than anything else. He wonders if this cactus has water inside and if he can eat it. Indeed, the cactus has plenty of water and perfect nutrients to provide a disguise. He takes a big bite and pauses to savor the taste of the food on his tongue. The protagonist says it tastes like watermelon mixed with pineapple. That would be more fitting as a dessert than a main dish, until he notices the little bunny eating as well and asks if the creature is following him. Bunny Balinya is completely attached to the dragon. Irusha cannot leave him alone to die, nor can he take him along. The little bunny leveled up by finishing off the scorpions. The protagonist then thinks about training the rabbit until it becomes a monster. He wants to help the creature at least evolve one more time. Then he sees a cloud of smoke approaching in the distance. It seems that a big feline is also running in his direction. It's the famous Nar Panther from the Gang of Villains. Irusha plans to use this guy as food. However, he realizes that something is not right. Nar appears to be fleeing from something much larger. Indeed, a gigantic insect appears that even resembles the alien predator. The little bunny starts jumping on Irusha's head, and the dragon suddenly puts him inside his own mouth. Irusha also runs away from that hellish centipede. He flees in fear of what the hell that thing might be. The dragon is even panting from all the running. He says that this damn desert has the most ridiculous things of all. He stops for a moment and has a blank expression. He spits out the bunny, who is now all slimy and gross. Then he apologizes because he did that due to intrusive thoughts. Bunny Bola looks like he wants to vomit. In fact, he has his mouth full from eating so much. Irusha is even impressed with how much this creature eats. Then we see what appears to be a village in the desert. The place is bustling and there's chatter everywhere. One of the men notices a distinctive figure. Others question whether it's not the great hero passing by. The entire neighborhood gets excited because of this supposed great hero. It seems that it is indeed him who has returned to his homeland. He is Irusha, the great hero. We return to the village buzzing with excitement over the great hero who has returned from his pilgrimage. Everyone is fawning over him and asking him questions. Irusha smiles and says he was put in a very difficult situation. But internally, the supposed hero is loving this. He feels on top of the world with all the flattery. He thinks that this nation of his origin is better than all the others, because it is a sacred nation where a hero is born every 500 years. He gets really excited because the nation lives by the virtues of the hero that he is. He feels like the king because of all these enchanted voices just because he returned. He wants everyone to praise him even more. Irusha climbs onto a rooftop as if he were a god on earth. He strikes a pose like a good Aura farmer. The hero apologizes because he needs to inform the church that he has returned and then will come back. Then he realizes that he won't be able to move around with this crazy crowd, so he decides to take a shortcut by walking through the alleys. The houses are all in a terrible state. There's this guy in a hat, who I can't even tell if he's alive or dead. Another one, completely hooded, seems to be searching through the rubble. Irusha observes all this and sees that social inequality continues as always. He wonders if things could possibly get worse than before. Soon, a child approaches and asks if he is the great hero. She comments that she wanted to try to talk to the great hero at least once. Irusha looks to one side and only sees a semi-dead person. On the other side, there's a drunk and a homeless person lying down. Irusha moves forward and seems to have drawn his sword. The child feels something prick her lightly. She looks back and sees that the great hero has vanished into thin air. The hero continues walking in hurried and angry steps. Irusha is filled with rage just because the child touched his cape. He even confesses that he would have cut the child in two if no one were watching. Then she feels her arm tingling in a strange way. The poor girl ends up with a terrible high-level cursed status. This is due to the cursed sword of that miserable Irusha. He knows that the child will die slowly and no one will know the cause. It's a shame he won't be able to watch her agonizing, but he'll set that aside the moment he chooses the dessert of the day. Leaving that son of a gun behind, we return to the sea of scorching sand. Irushia, the true, looks at the horizon. While the little bunny continues eating on top of his head, the protagonist realizes that his scales have not yet altered the bunny's status. He checks the ability again and wishes to have more details about it. Then, he receives an explanation that the curse causes the body to deteriorate gradually, but if the curse is minor, distancing from the thing that caused the curse frees the person from it. He notes that the level of his status-checking ability is increasing. He reflects that he will be able to distance himself from the bunny before the worst happens if he sees any status alteration. Irushia feels like a true disease transmitter. He also remembers the Plague Breath ability, which is equally lethal. Our dragon does not intend to level up these abilities, but he imagines it would be good to test it next time, just for science. Night falls, and Irushia thinks about going out using rolling due to the vastness of the desert. He wonders if rolling works with the bunny in his mouth. The little bunny gets nervous right away as if it could read the dragon's thoughts. Irushia sees that the little creature at least has good intuition. He soon decides that he will only put the bunny in his mouth in a situation of great emergency. Then the creature becomes almost a horror version of a Pokemon. Our protagonist reflects if the bunny has some secret mind-reading ability. He then notices something while the bunny continues eating. He feels the presence of something behind the cacti. It's a three-headed llama camel with a little unicorn horn. Irushia is also impressed by this exotic thing and checks its status. He remembers hearing that camels have water in their humps and feels that it is juicy. Then he thinks it must taste terrible, but he will eat it anyway. The triple camel notices him and takes off. Our dragon looks at this thing from behind, and it is an enormous oddity. The way they move their legs looks more like a spider or something like that. It seems that the creature is slow, and the dragon won't have much difficulty capturing it. Irushia recalls that this thing brings back some memories of the two-headed lion. The creature is level D- and will also be good for training the bunny. He asks the bunny how much longer it intends to eat, because the fight is about to start. Then, Irushia prepares his little hand to punch someone. He uses his poisonous claws, and the face that this camel makes is hilarious. The creature ends up gaining the status of paralyzed due to the attack. Irushia gently grabs the bunny by the ears and throws it near the triple camel. Bunny Ball becomes a creature of life with murderous intentions. It takes a bite out of the hump of this Chernobyl creature. It continues to bite down mercilessly on the camel. The little creature is already begging for help, and its paralysis is about to end. The assassin bunny from Monty Python takes one last bite. Then, Irushia takes it back again, and this method of his seems like a way to make the MangaCarp evolve. Now, it's time for the dragon to test something else. This creature will become more bugged than it was before, because it receives a free Plague Breath. The Plague Breath has the same texture as squid ink. The camel gets a minor curse status after taking a puff in the face. He then discovers that the Plague Breath is actually a breath of curse. It causes no damage and is practically just a mere torture ability or something like that. The paralysis of the test subject ends, and it scurries away with those horrendous spider legs. Irushia delivers the mercy blow to the poor thing, dealing absurd damage. Finally, the suffering of the poor creature that was used in every possible way has ended. Now, it's time to chop up the guy and make a meal with him. Irushia notices that the bunny is going to bite the guy and takes a glance. He sends a fire blast first and ruins the bunny's fun. The barbecue is ready, and now it's just time to dig in. Our protagonist did this to prevent the bunny from eating the cursed meat. He doesn't know the details well and can't take that risk. Irushia feels like he is experiencing a great déjà vu with all these situations. Soon he sees a trail of sand and smoke beside him. Apparently, that ping is indeed moving. He notes that it is probably that giant centipede from the underworld. Irushia gets scared and wants to get out of there. Then he realizes that the big creature is heading in another direction. This centipede is chasing something again. The protagonist is shocked to realize who it is pursuing. The thing that this giant monster intends to attack is a human cart. It attacks the rear of the vehicle, and our dear defender of humans is extremely irritated. Irushia wants to know what the hell a carriage is doing in this godforsaken place. He uses the presence sensor and becomes worried. He confirms that there are no monsters hiding underground, but he doesn't know if he will be able to reach the giant predator from this distance. The protagonist checks the status and sees that it is a giant centipede, rank B. He uses the classic roll to reach it and observes its abilities. Irushia feels that he has no chance of winning against this madness. The strategy is to make the centipede shift its focus from the carriage to him. Then he manages to catch up to the insect using the overwhelming speed of the roll. Our dragon grabs one of the centipede's horns while still in motion. He is dragged by the creature's strength, its legs even scraping against the sand. He ends up feeling his feet leave the ground, and he is completely taken by the creature of the sands. Irishia is indignant that the thing doesn't stop and says he has only seen scenes like this in Western movies. The centipede doesn't care that there is a damn dragon being dragged by it. The creature begins to charge some magic using its mouth. Irishia notices and imagines that the beast is about to launch a long-range attack. He throws a dragon punch to at least try to inflict some damage on the creature, but it seems to have no effect on the insect. Then the centipede finishes, charging the magic and unleashes a heat ray. Our protagonist continues to exert a lot of effort and starts to move. The centipede feels its ray change direction. Irishia shakes the centipede like those training ropes in CrossFit. The heat ray grazes the roof of the carriage. At that moment, the driver soiled his pants with the remaining feces he had. The dragon sees that the centipede released the little power it was charging. However, the heat ray never seems to end. Irishia keeps shaking it and gets nervous because its ability lasts a long time. The centipede also becomes irritated with this back and forth. The ray zigzags toward the carriage and misses its target. Then it becomes even more furious. Finally, it notices Irishia clinging to its tail horn or whatever that is. The sly creature directs the ray toward the dragon and nearly gives him a heart attack. It ended up pulling its own horn from its rear, and Irishia managed to break free. Soon he turns into Sonic the Hedgehog to try another plan. He takes off and heads for the centipede's head. This type of creature locks its eyes on a prey and doesn't look away until it finishes it. The protagonist sees a light coming from the centipede's mouth once again. Apparently, it was holding back, but now it got nervous and wants to unleash everything at once. However, it changes its mind and closes its mouth, making the light disappear. Irishia doesn't understand why it stopped and even thinks he missed something. He soon sees that the carriage has a shattered roof and has also stopped. The guy who isn't foolish abandoned the cart and fled on horseback. The coachman used his own cart as bait to run away from there. That's why you shouldn't put the cart before the horse. But something ends up surprising the protagonist greatly. He lands and approaches the carriage. The centipede is also very close to the cart, ready to cause harm. Surprisingly, the cargo is a bunch of prisoners. They seem to be a somewhat furry bunch. This fact makes Irishia even more irritated than he already was. At that exact moment, the centipede attacks the carriage in an extremely shocking manner. The people just go flying with their HP at 0 with no chance of rescue. Irishia remains absolutely shocked, and I am even more so. Even the coachman barely escaped. The evil centipede brutally devours 3 of them at once. Our dragon nearly turns into a Super Saiyan and charges at the centipede. He breathes a fiery blast at its head and inflicts minimal damage. The destruction caused by this son of a gun was a disaster of berserk-level proportions. Irishia is outraged that the stupid insect killed everyone in one shot, until he finds a person who still has a bit of HP left. Draco notices this and flies off to rescue her. He grabs her with his mouth just like he does with the rabbit to get her out of this situation. However, the hellish insect is still right there beside him, and it gets angry at Irishia's actions. The protagonist thinks that the centipede must think he stole one of its prey. The creature from hell launches its infinite ray in the direction of the dragon. This overpowered thing keeps making a bunch of turns trying to chase the dragon. It's a hellish zigzag that hits here and bounces there. The heat ray looks like a guided missile and almost grazes the dragon. Irishia thinks the range of this ability is also absurdly broken. Then the evil worm sees the protagonist fleeing on the horizon. She looks menacing, but there's nothing more she can do. Our protagonist is completely disoriented after this, exhausted as hell, both physically and mentally. Irishia evolves and still witnesses some hard-level tragedies. He walks a few more meters in the sand and finally spits out the girl he saved. She seems to be a cute cat girl. Her name is Nina Nifa, and she is a beast woman. The poor girl was a slave, making the situation worse than it already was. She has no healing magic and will probably end up dying from the hemorrhage, so he goes to see if there are any herbs that can help stop the bleeding. Later, the woman wakes up all battered. She finds herself lying in the vast sea of sand. She looks to the horizon and wonders where she is. The beast woman has no idea how she is even alive. She also questions where the others might be, until the ugly dragon's ride appears in front of her, ready to give her a heart attack. She stares, trying to process the information, and her soul leaves her body when she processes it. Irishia observes the situation without saying a word. The rabbit does what he does best, which is eat. The protagonist was worried looking for him, and the guy was eating. He tries to think of a way to stop Mina's bleeding and realizes she has woken up. Then she faints again from the shock of seeing that abomination in front of her. Irishia knows that the cactus won't stop her negative status and has no other option. He could use her clothes as bandages, but he wouldn't be able to do it delicately. The little rabbit also has no healing or support abilities, until he notices the rest ability right at the very end of the list. The rabbit companion probably gained this ability upon evolution. However, the problem is that the rabbit will see the girl as food. The woman is all messed up and still has that disgusting dragon saliva on her. Bunny makes a face of disgust that anyone would make upon seeing that scene. Because of this, he doesn't see Nina as food. Our protagonist tries to communicate for the rabbit to use a rest on Nina. The other just looks with a face that says he didn't understand a thing. He speaks again and gets no response from the rabbit. Irishia says more aggressively in gestures, yet nothing happens. Then the rabbit picks up a cactus thorn. He starts doing something with the object in the sand. Irishia watches, intending to decipher what the creature is doing. It reveals that he drew a piece of meat in the sand. The protagonist understands that he wants meat in exchange for using rest on Nina. Dragonoid accepts the deal and tells him to hurry and use the ability then. It was a miracle for the rabbit to have the rest ability at such a convenient moment. He suspects it was the work of a divine voice because it was too much of a coincidence. Most of the monsters he fought had some kind of recovery. Soon, the little rabbit uses rest on Nina. Now is just a matter of resting, and soon she'll be back to 100%. A little while later, she starts to move, and seems like she will wake up. Irishia stops for a moment, unresponsive. He doesn't know how to act at this point. The woman fainted the last time just by looking at him. The protagonist hydrates her and finds himself in the same dilemma as always, not knowing what to do with her. He thinks that probably the nearby human city supports the enslavement of beastmen due to the trafficking that was occurring. He remembers that one of the adventurers he met was a beast woman, so there are places where they live well too. Then an idea comes to his mind to try to solve this problem. He intends to use the humanization ability. His appearance becomes more human as the level of this ability increases. Irishia fantasizes about what he will say and realizes he doesn't have time to say nonsense. He quickly uses humanization and the little creature in the background is terrified. He falls to the ground, all worn out after using the ability. But he looks much better than before, and even strikes a charming pose. After this pose, even the rabbit stumbles. The terror that this little creature is feeling right now is real. Irishia knows that at least his more intimidating monster aura must have faded. Our dragon man has less than 3 minutes to finish the job. He waits a bit, and the woman doesn't wake up. The MP drops and Nina continues sleeping. Oh, sleepy woman, huh? Irishia gets angry because the woman won't wake up, and he's just losing MP. He loses patience and shakes her a bit. He even gives her a few slaps on the face to see if she reacts. Finally, she opens her eyes, still a bit dazed. She comes face to face with this wonderful beast reading her. The girl crawls away like a madwoman, terrified of the guy Draco. She begs, saying her taste is horrible and not worth devouring. The protagonist's plan didn't work and he needs to think of something else. He soon tries to strike the same pose that made Miria feel pity for him. But she is so scared that she doesn't even look at him. So he decides he will try to use his voice to convince her that he is good. He tries to say something and Mina thinks he is conjuring some magic. Then she starts to understand that he is trying to communicate with her. It's clear that he was human and was transformed into a monster. The beast woman pauses for a moment and tries to piece things together in her head. Surprisingly, she understands everything Irishia meant. He managed to lower her guard and has 1 more minute of transformation. He asks Nina where she wants him to take her. Nina reflects on this question. She thinks a bit longer while the protagonist waits. The silence continues, and she doesn't even know what to answer. Poor Nina really doesn't know how to respond to that question. Nina says she doesn't know where she wants to go. Irishia certainly wasn't expecting that answer. He remembers that Nina was a slave and probably doesn't have a defined home anyway. The MP keeps decreasing and the protagonist will have to say goodbye to his MP. Our protagonist gives that basic Joker smile and waves goodbye to the little one. He returns to his big bodybuilding dragon form. And again, Nina can't handle the pressure. Irishia is all worn out because his MP literally hit 0 and he looks like he's going to faint. Some time passes and we see the protagonist in a desert worse than the Sahara. The dragon opens his eyes as if waking up from a bad hangover. He lost track of time, and even so, the MP hasn't fully recovered. The little bunny was also there, lying down after the carrot beers. He looks at Irishia and sighs in relief. The creature was on guard while his dragon friend took a nap. Irushia pets the little bunny, saying he was a great help. Nina is also there, safe and sound. It seems that Nina's nutrition and stamina are very low because she just sleeps. He soon remembers that until now, the girl was handcuffed and removes those from her. Now, what she needs is water and plenty of nutrition, so he asks the bunny to keep an eye on Nina because he's going to go hunting. He tells his companion that he won't take long and will just get more meat. When he heard the word meat, he got happy right away. He uses the roll and says he'll be back soon. Irushia needs to grab some cacti and find some meat to eat and for the bunny. The protagonist runs around like crazy, shouting for cacti and camels. He spins around like Sonic, looking for these two specific things. He gets angry because the only thing he finds in this dump is sand and more sand. Our dragon swore that cacti grew everywhere in this mess. Finally, he finds one and stops, doing a cool drift. But the guy gets pricked in the shoulder, taking 16 damage. He notices the attack and doesn't even know who shot that thing. He wants to know where the hell that came from and what it is. Irushia notices something strange that I also notice from here. The damn cactus is moving and grumbling like a grumpy old man. This desert is so crazy that even the cactus evolved and turned into a monster. The protagonist called for so many cacti and camels that a mix of the two showed up. Irushia doesn't know whether to ignore this creature or try his luck with it. He pulls the thorn out of his shoulder and takes a bite to see if it tastes good. Our dragon realizes it tastes just like a regular cactus. Irushia knows he can't take too long because the bunny and Nina are alone, so he will have to finish this little game quickly. Irushia analyzes the stats of the ancestral monster cactus that seems quite tough. The protagonist knows that the battle will be difficult because its stats are quite high, so he positions himself and prepares to deliver the first blow. He uses Wind Slash and the cactus already gets a bit scared. The big cactus gets hit and takes critical damage, letting out a scream of pain. Our protagonist mocks that the monster's end will be due to its low speed. This makes the opponent a perfect target for long-range attacks. Lord Cacto is hit by everything, and the dragon's ability increases with this beating. This didn't work with the slime, but now it's proving very useful. Pride begins to rise, and the dragon wants to farm experience from this cactus. Then, out of nowhere, the spiky green horse stops moving. Irushia tries to check the status of the beak, but he can't find it anymore. Apparently, the creature is disappearing. The protagonist is shocked by this because he didn't even gain any XP. Soon, several thorns appear from nowhere and hit the dragon while it's off guard. Monster Cacto only appears behind the protagonist, revealing its malice. Cavalno Cacto charges at him like Godzilla. Our protagonist faces it and nearly wets his pants. He runs away like lightning and manages to avoid being hit by the cactus camel. Irushia flies high out of sheer fear. He realizes that the creature tricked him and used an illusion to deceive him. This little game caused Irushia to run out of his MP once again. The protagonist assumes that it must have other abilities to compensate for its slowness. The camel cactus strikes a classic Pokemon pose and summons a sandstorm. The dragon is caught off guard again and is more foolish than in any other fight. This ruined his chance to fly away. Now, Irushia sees that the camel is no small fry. The creature also creates several illusions amidst the sandstorm. The sandstorm and the creature's roars disoriented the dragon's senses. He uses the status checker and it only reveals the one on the left. He charges at the supposed true monster, ready to unleash his fury. Irushia knows that what he did was sneaky and even apologizes to the creature, but the cactus is quick and has already launched a thorn at point-blank range at the dragon. The spike is aimed to finish off the protagonist. Our dragon quickly parries the thorn. He sends a gust of wind at the creature, and he even appears in front of it at a speed greater than Flash. He uses the neckbreaker and tears off the cactus monster's jackfruit. Irushia just killed a historic cactus over 200 years old. The protagonist had already imagined that the creature could use its spikes. He is satisfied because he also leveled up significantly. Irushia's luck in this battle was the ability to check status. Now, the challenge will be to bring this brute back to their base. Irushia will take what he can and then return for the rest. He turns into Sonic and heads home. He leaves a trail of sand as he rolls along, and he notices something. He sees a little creature with feline ears in the distance. It's Nina, who has finally woken up and looks all cute with the rabbit. She notices the movement and still looks at him with a smile on her face. She comes face to face with this figure straight from the most wretched level of hell. Nina reacts again like any human being with a love for life would. The protagonist observes the two and sees that the sneaky rabbit has hit it off with her. Nina even calls his killer Rabbit Sir Bun. This little rascal even got a nickname while the other was struggling in the fight. The desert celebrity nickname of the rabbit is not just for show. Irishia looks at his hands and stupidly crushes the food he was carrying. Using the roll while holding the food was a foolish idea, but he ended up storing a bit of food in his mouth by luck or misfortune. Then he extends his hand and offers food to Nina. The beast woman can't believe that a dragon actually saved her. She really likes the smell of this mess. Irishia is relieved that she accepted this slop. Now, it's just a matter of making the second trip to get the rest of the cactus, because the big eating rabbit is not even close to being satisfied. Irishia carefully grabs the rabbit by the ears and places it on top of his big head. He wants Nina to climb on top of him, but he knows she won't do it on her own. Soon he picks her up and at least mentally asks for permission from the lady. The beast woman closes her eyes, thinking it's her time to die. She peeks to see if she has already been devoured. However, she finds herself on top of the dragon's head. Irishia stands up, all Sigma in draconic form. Nina feels nauseous and is about to either die of a heart attack or vomit on the dragon. The protagonist realizes that this is making her terrified again, but the only thing he can do now is fly more cautiously. Nina tries to set her fear aside. She lifts her eyes a bit with some hesitation and comes across this incredibly beautiful landscape that even makes my eyes fill with tears. It must be the first time that the poor, mistreated girl sees something so lovely and free like this. Now, it seems she has completely lost the fear she had. Then our dragon lands and walks over to where the remnants of the food are. Irishia realizes that they will soon arrive at the location and the rabbit will be able to satisfy its hunger. But they arrive, and the food is already being devoured by a gang of ruffians. They are desert hyenas, or whatever that is. The protagonist kicks everyone away, and the dogs run off in a panic. He can't even chase after the guys because he might end up knocking Nina down. The rabbit's eyes are filled with more hatred than they were before. Irishia uses the sensor and notices that there is still one of those hyenas left for them to take down. However, the poor one that remains is just a pesky cub. The little creature looks at him with a pitiful expression, making Irushia's heart waver. Our dragon hesitates and lacks the courage to hurt the little dog. The rabbit's veins seem to bulge, and he nearly foams at the mouth with rage. Nina observes the whole situation and laughs. She praises Irushia, saying that he is a very gentle dragon. The protagonist feels that he has gained more confidence from Nina. The trio arrives at a kind of ruin of a buried city with Greek architecture. Irishia observes the broken pieces of houses, structures completely buried by time and sand, and even an entrance that leads through an ancient basement or underground base. Our dragon compares all this to the structures that are practically buried in the ground. He imagines that there must have been people living there at some point in history. It seems that everything there was under maintenance for many years and was never completed. Then, Nina sniffs something that catches her attention. She says she can smell a faint scent of water. Soon, the protagonist imagines that there might be a well nearby, or something similar. Nina points out the direction from where she is sensing the smell. The group arrives at a location, and there is something shining in the distance. It seems to be an oasis, unless it is a mirage or a trick by some monster. The group continues to observe to make sure of what it is, and they shout with joy upon discovering that it is indeed an oasis. Nina smiles and tells Sir Bun that now they will be able to have a little water. Irishia is already thinking ahead and intends to turn that place into their base. He is also impressed that they found the location thanks to Nina's special beast woman sense of smell. He thinks that fresh water will always surpass cactus water or anything similar. However, he spots a 3-headed camel arriving just in time to drink some water. Now the rabbit will have plenty of camel meat to enjoy. Irishia wonders if the rabbit is anxious because soon it will evolve. Just 2 more levels and the creature will be able to become even more monstrous. The protagonist rushes towards the rabbit, who is also feeling thirsty. They take down the camel that is just there in the desert to suffer. Finally, the rabbit reaches the maximum level. Irishia hopes that its next evolution will at least be rank D. But the rabbit does not evolve at all, and just lets out a little sneeze. Our protagonist is perplexed by this. Drago remembers that the last time a creature sneezed, it was due to a curse. He checks the rabbit's status, and fortunately, it is not cursed. He reflects that the sneeze might have just been a simple common sneeze. However, he pauses and notices that the rabbit has been acting a bit strange lately. He starts to think that the rabbit is on the fine line, where the curse is shown in the status. But he believes that perhaps the rabbit's evolution could reset the cursed status. He looks up, clearly very worried about this issue of its cursed scale. He feels that they have reached their limit and this should be their last meal together. He decides that they should go to the oasis and have a proper farewell and meal. Soon they arrive at the location and it is indeed real without illusion. Both of them are happy that it is a true oasis. Then Nina remembers something and starts to speak. She asks if something happened to Serbun. The protagonist reflects if, by any chance, he sensed that they should part ways. Irishia gets angry because things will become much more difficult if the rabbit acts like this. He tries to think of a way to tell him about the curse. He says he will prepare a delicious camel for a splendid final feast, but a nasty creature emerges from the water and watches the trio. So let's go to the desert city of Irishia, the foolish human. Someone is talking to what seems to be the bishop from there. It's the slave trader crying that the sand centipede attacked his slaves. The bishop just watches with a serious and silent expression. Soon the trader says he was told that the hero had already subdued the centipede. Then the bishop thinks that what happened is that the centipede must have evolved. The only possible route for trafficking beast men at the moment is the desert. They continue debating whether to put an end to the centipede or not. The trader also mentions that he saw a plague dragon in the desert. Now the bishop is a bit more worried. The trader has no doubt that he saw a black dragon in the flesh. He says that either the dragon or the centipede will end up getting close to the village. The bishop looks at the picture of the plague dragon and becomes thoughtful. Then the trader says he urgently needs them to deal with these creatures. He also promises that he will demonstrate and donate a lot of faith to make up for it. The bishop looks out the window and doesn't know what to say about these merchants, who should only be concerned with giving them gold and not sermons. Soon the clergyman looks back, surprised by the voice he heard earlier. It's the idiot from Irishia in a rather dubious pose. The priest asks how long he has been there, and Irishia replies that it's been a moon. Irishia feels he shouldn't interfere in the priest's matters. The bishop says he can't just be wandering around with his presence dimmed. The two discuss the matter of the centipede that the trader was talking about. Irishia says that people want to put an end to the slave traders' company. He explains that the centipede is also closing off the routes for this trafficking. They complain that the trader complained about having to pay for financial support. Irishia says that the trafficking of beastmen is only tolerated in Harina. He mentions that the most interesting part of this whole conversation was the dispute between the dragon and the centipede. The priest mocks, asking if Irishia believes in such nonsense. They further complain that the trader wanted to force them to take action. The priest states that the monsters he mentioned are the rarest of the rare. But Irishia raises the possibility that a dragon might actually be around. He thinks it's best to initiate an investigation for that. Then the bishop asks what Irishia is thinking. Soon the hero replies that he is only thinking about the people of the country. Irishia just wants to follow what is expected of a hero. And he threatens, saying that the bishop will be in trouble if there really is a dragon out there. The hero says he will act if something happens, and that the exploration troop is quite competent. They will investigate and bring back the head of the plague dragon. The white rabbit continues to be quite sad. The protagonist remembers that he has no choice whenever he recalls the cursed scales, but even so, he feels a bit wobbly with this mix of emotions. He feels that he might need to force a separation, just like he did with Miria. Only this will happen after they deal with that water creature. Irishia is pretending not to feel it, just to set up a counterattack. Then the creature appears, and it's a bizarre giant slug. Our protagonist can't even attack after seeing the creature's appearance. He is in shock to see that it is a giant slug. He feels disgusted and thinks he will never touch it with bare hands. He analyzes the status and now sees that the monster is bigger than Irishia himself. Irishia realizes he is capable of defeating this mess, but he doesn't want to touch it. Nina's soul has just left her body for the 5th time in less than 2 days. Quilobola appears and holds the beast woman's hand. He takes her away from the battlefield and Irishia feels proud of him. Now is just Irishia and the slug. This creature also has the annoying ability of mirage, and apparently it keeps its form hidden for variety. But coincidentally, Irishia gains the ability to resist illusions. Now he can somewhat differentiate the real from the hallucination. However, the slug has much more speed to dodge long-range attacks, so he decides he will hit the slug and then wash himself off if needed. He quickly notes that the real one is to his left. Irishia then strikes it right on target without wasting time. But a piece of the slug gets stuck in his hand. The creature starts moving in a disgusting and strange way. Soon, the protagonist begins to shake his hand to get rid of this madness. The slug frees itself and takes a bit of damage in the process. Irishia notices that it uses self-regeneration ability. What matters is that he is managing to deal damage to the grotesque creature. He concludes that he just needs to handle the filth to defeat her. Then she releases a horrifying vomit upwards. Our protagonist sees this grotesque situation and even steps back in shock. He doesn't understand what kind of bizarre nonsense this is. Then he recognizes that it's a water jet gun. Just much weirder. Irishia sees a field of mucus and doesn't know if this will harm him. He uses the presence detector and each mucus reveals someone. Soon the dragon is shocked and never expected this. He notes the things that appear and feels even more disgusted. Apparently, they are all extremely disgusting slug eggs. It's a bunch of hellish little slugs that the giant summoned. Irishia quickly sends a fire blast to burn all these pests. Then he uses a roll and kills a bunch at once, like in a hack and slash. However, some little slugs approach Nina and the rabbit. The rabbit looks at the approaching creatures with disdain. Irishia is worried that the rabbit won't be able to handle so many. He then tries to advance and ends up slipping on the mucus. The roll is spinning infinitely and the protagonist can't stop. Then the rabbit observes the situation, somewhat perplexed. Finally, he decides to evolve and turns into a big, muscular rabbit. Irishia doesn't like that the rabbit evolved because he will reset his status, but the big rabbit starts spinning like crazy too and deals damage to everyone. The protagonist retracts what he said and feels proud of his companion. Now, he just needs to stop spinning like a top. Dragonoid is all covered in slug slime. But the giant slug ended up disappearing after all this chaos. Our dragon uses the sensor and feels something behind him coming from the ground. He concentrates and starts paying attention to the noise until he catches her off guard right on time and blasts her with his tail. However, he realizes that something is wrong in this mess. There is another presence coming from beneath him. Then he gets hit before he can try to react. The protagonist was hit by the blow with all its might. Soon he grabs the limp body of the slug and throws it up with all his strength. He inspects the slug's status and now everything is in order. Our plague dragon notes that this time it is the real slug. Irishia charges a killer punch without hesitating to get his hands dirty. He literally sends a damn shoryuken at the slug. Exactly what you heard and saw. Man, Irishia sent the slug flying with a shori. Now he gains a lot of experience and seems to have killed the right one, but there is still a strange being right in front of him. The two stare at each other and the silence says it all. He tried to make the ability called shoryuken, but it didn't work. Now, what remains is just a mashup of little slugs. So he quickly sends a fire blast and burns everyone. But after the fire, they start trying to escape and disperse. However, they got close to the wrong guy. The big rabbit sends a tornado and even shoves a slug in its mouth. The rabbit has turned into a tank type. Then, Irishia approaches the little pond to wash his hands. But he notices something wrong with the water. The water is turning into a kind of sludge. It's the first time he sees something like this happen to an oasis. He reflects a bit and discovers that it was all just an illusion. The creature's status says it creates small pools of water, and while they lay their eggs, they become an eye-catching place through an illusion. Irishia rolls his eyes in anger at having his whole plan ruined. He screams in despair and indignation. All he wants is the beautiful oasis back. Then we see the hypocritical people from the village approaching to investigate the area. One of them, who is probably the chief, observes everything with a serious expression. Another soldier warns that he saw an oasis that simply turned to sludge out of nowhere. The captain explains that it was a nest of amargarashi. Then he thinks a bit and imagines that some monster defeated the amargarashi. He smiles and thinks they hit the right target this time. He tells the men that this is their chance to become dragon slayers. He says they will advance to attack, and our trio doesn't expect what will happen next. We see the rabbit's new status, and now he has a stomach that can handle anything. He evolved this way because he was in a polluted environment, and the protagonist's cap fits. Irishia wonders if the rabbit somehow adapted to him. Indeed, the rabbit gained several resistances related to the plague dragon. The protagonist realizes that his friend gained resistance to the curse and feels more at ease. Nina asks if the dragon is happy and knows that he is very happy. The rabbit has become lively and crazy again like it was before. Now he can focus on solving Nina's problem. Then Irishia decides to analyze the rabbit's status more closely. The newest ability he gained is Cleanse. The protagonist is surprised that the rabbit also gained telepathy. Our buddy rabbit is now full of good abilities. With telepathy, the dragon can use the rabbit as an interpreter. He thinks about trusting Nina to the rabbit, but then changes his mind. He knows it would be very difficult for him to take care of her and himself. The plan is then to talk to Nina through the rabbit. But the rabbit is out of NP and can't use Amy abilities. Then Nina and Irushia notice something approaching. They hear the sound of horses from the reconnaissance troop. Irushia tries to identify what that noise is. He sees that it is coming in their direction, until he manages to identify that they are humans on horseback. Irushia sees the humans and is a bit surprised. The protagonist wonders what these guys' objective is. Then it dawns on him that they are coming to attack him. The captain gives tips for them to keep their distance and throw their spears. They charge straight at the protagonist and he realizes he is in trouble. He notes that the people are extremely fast and the best thing to do is to run away from there. Unexpectedly, the rabbit starts to dig. He is terrified and has already buried himself underground. Irushia imagines that he didn't want to be caught in his mouth, so he hid. He wonders if there is even a slight possibility of negotiating with the humans. The soldiers approach, and one of them looks through binoculars. Our dragon realizes they notice Minna and thinks about playing the villain to save her, but one of the guards comments that they can kill the beast woman because she must just be a slave. If I were Irushia, I would kill everyone with extreme cruelty right now. The protagonist stands face to face with the knights. The captain has a big smile on his face, thinking he will win. We see our protagonist's status, then he analyzes the status of the others and realizes that most of them are quite weak. The protagonist thinks these guys are crazy because they wouldn't even be able to defeat a slug. One of them is aware and thinks it's better to retreat and just give a report. Another is confident that their Captain Hagen will be enough to defeat the dragon. The captain boasts that he has experience in killing dragons. He even has the audacity to say that Irushia is injured from the battle against the slug. Our dragon thinks it would be good to show his own status just to scare them. The best strategy is to show the power difference between him and these losers. The captain shouts his own strategy, ordering them to shoot arrows at the dragon's eyes. Then he does another trick and tells the horse to run like the wind. The knight passes by him thinking he is Ronaldinho dribbling. Our protagonist acknowledges that the mare Mary is indeed fast, but he grabs her by the tail, making her stop running. The little mare feels the jolt and suffers because of her owner. Hager flies higher than Irushia himself. He has a dumbfounded look and can't do anything else. The others are already completely scared. The cavalry runs away and everyone else stays behind. Irushia wonders if the captain is okay after flying away. Our dragon is too kind and feels relieved that the guy is alive. He calls the mare to come closer to him. However, she runs away and completely ignores him. Hager shouts for her and is now abandoned, even by his own mare. Even Irushia feels a bit sorry for the pathetic captain. Now, it's just a matter of dealing with the rest of them, but they are all already scared and wetting themselves. Irushia does nothing, and they all run away. Then a voice starts speaking in the protagonist's mind. This voice tells everyone to run away from there. The crowd becomes desperate and thinks it is the dragon's voice. Irushia feels that this voice comes from the telepathy ability. Soon, the voice threatens everyone, saying it will do a lot of cruelty if they don't leave. It exclaims that it will make everyone regret being born. They run away without even thinking twice. Irushia doesn't understand what just happened. Rabbit Ball comes out from under the ground, and the protagonist discovers that the telepathy came from him. Big Rabbit is very proud of what he did. The problem is that now everyone will think poorly of Irushia. He hopes that the Spirit Savior skill will contribute to a good evolution in the future. Then Rabbit Ball ends up succumbing, but it was only because he ran out of MP. The protagonist is very grateful for the rabbit's effort. Irushia thinks it will now be difficult to reconcile with the people from Harina, and it won't be as good to set up a base in one place anymore. Then we see someone fallen on the ground escaping from something. He asks for help with a look of utter despair. But then we only hear a loud scream, and we don't know what happened.